Imagine this. Two entrepreneurs launch their ventures at the exact same time. They have similar ideas, access to the same market, and comparable initial funding. On paper, they look like equals, both driven, both capable. But then, a distinct divergence occurs. One entrepreneur skyrockets, navigating challenges with calm, making bold decisions when uncertainty looms, and consistently delivering results, breaking through barriers and achieving remarkable success. The other stalls, hesitates when the pressure mounts, gets bogged down in analysis when swift action is needed, and despite working just as many hours, sees their dreams slowly fade. What was the shift? It wasn't a sudden influx of genius. It wasn't a stroke of unforeseen luck. It wasn't some preferential treatment one received. The critical difference was this. One possessed the unwavering ability to execute decisively under pressure, while the other faltered when the heat was on. This is the uncomfortable reality most people shy away from. The moment you shrink from decisive action in critical moments, you begin to lose. The instant you believe that overthinking will save you, or that waiting for perfect conditions is a strategy, the world starts to leave you behind. Opportunity isn't patient. It rewards those who act, especially when it's hard. And the individuals who grasp this truth, they are the ones who will always command their destiny. They are the ones who will never be left behind. If you've ever felt paralyzed by a big decision, like you're spinning your wheels unable to commit to a path, like opportunities slip by while others seize them, it's not because you're incapable. It's because the world lavishes rewards on those who master the art of execution under pressure, and it penalizes those who hesitate or crumble. And here's the most insidious part. Most people don't even realize they're failing to execute effectively. They get a good idea, they plan, they even start, but when the first real obstacle appears, when the fear of failure kicks in, or when the path forward is murky, they retreat into inaction, disguised as more planning or waiting for the right time. But the right time never comes. The world moves too fast, competition is too fierce, and new challenges arise daily. If you aren't consistently taking bold, calculated action, especially when it's uncomfortable, you are silently ceding ground. And by the time you realize it, the game has changed. But the empowering news? You don't have to be one of those people. The very fact that you're here, listening to this audiobook, signals you're already ahead of the curve. You've recognized a desire to break free from indecision and inaction. You've decided to forge the steel of your resolve, and that decision alone has the power to reshape your entire future. Because high-stakes execution isn't just a skill you learn. It's a mindset you embody. Why decisive execution is a lifelong imperative. Consider the titans of industry, the groundbreaking innovators, the leaders who always seem to navigate storms and emerge stronger. What unites them? It's not merely their vision. It's their relentless capacity to act on that vision, especially when faced with adversity and uncertainty. The most crippling belief you can harbor in today's dynamic world is that success comes from perfect plans or risk-free scenarios. That once you've strategized, the execution will be easy. That you have the luxury of waiting for absolute certainty. But here's the stark truth. The world doesn't care about your perfect plan gathering dust. It cares about what you do today under today's imperfect conditions. Every field is in constant flux. Strategies that were goldmines a few years ago are now relics. Businesses are being disrupted by agile competitors who aren't afraid to make moves, learn from them, and iterate quickly. The only way to guarantee enduring success is to cultivate the ability to execute with conviction, consistently, deliberately, and aggressively, even when the pressure is immense. And yet, the vast majority never master this. They overanalyze, they seek endless consensus, they fear making a mistake. They go through life believing that good intentions or hard work alone will pave the way, when in reality, intention without execution is just a daydream, and hard work on the wrong things, or at the wrong time, is just wasted energy. Meanwhile, the top 1%, those who not only succeed but sustain success, they treat decisive execution as a core operating principle. They understand that achievement isn't just about having good ideas. It's about the courage and discipline to bring those ideas to life, especially when it's daunting. And that's why they consistently win. The power of daily decisive actions. Why small, bold moves can transform your life. Most people think they need a monumental breakthrough or a grand gesture to change their trajectory. But the truth is, it's the consistent habit of making decisive, even if small, moves daily that builds the muscle for high-stakes execution. Execution, especially under pressure, is like building strength. The more consistently you practice making decisions and acting on them, especially when uncomfortable, the more formidable your capacity becomes. Imagine two individuals. One waits for perfect clarity before making any significant move. They spend weeks, even months, in analysis paralysis. The other, even when faced with 70% of the information, makes a calculated decision and acts, learning and adjusting as they go. They make small, decisive moves every day. Fast forward 1 year. One of them has made significant progress, learned invaluable lessons from real-world action, and built a track record of getting things done. The other is still refining their perfect plan, wondering why they haven't moved forward. That's the power of daily decisive action. You don't need to make earth-shattering moves every day. You just need to cultivate the habit of acting, of pushing through uncertainty, of choosing a path and committing. The key is consistent, courageous action. The most effective individuals don't wait until they feel 100% confident or until all risks are mitigated. They make execution a non-negotiable part of their process because they know a profound secret. The best opportunities don't wait for the hesitant. They are captured by the bold. How this audiobook will equip you to out-execute 99% of people. This audiobook isn't just about feeling motivated to act. It's about strategic execution. It's about arming you with the precise mental frameworks and tactical tools to become the kind of individual who thrives under pressure and never shies away from necessary action, no matter the stakes. Each chapter is crafted to be practical, actionable, and immediately applicable. No abstract theories, no feel-good platitudes, just proven strategies that deliver results. By the end of this audiobook, you won't just understand why decisive execution under pressure is vital. You will possess the blueprint to embed it into your very being, permanently. The undeniable trait of the world's most impactful people. Still skeptical? Observe the world's most formidable achievers, leaders, innovators, game changers. They operate in diverse arenas, with varied skills, but one common thread binds them. They execute when others hesitate. Steve Jobs didn't wait for the market to be ready for the iPhone. He executed on a bold vision. Generals in wartime don't have the luxury of complete information. They make life-and-death decisions and execute under extreme duress. Champion athletes don't freeze in the final seconds of a game. They execute the play they've trained for. If they need to execute decisively to achieve their monumental successes, why would you ever allow yourself to be paralyzed by inaction? Your decision: be outmaneuvered or out-execute. Right now, you stand at a crossroads. You can be like the majority, overthinking, waiting for certainty, and watching as opportunities are seized by others. Or you can join the ranks of the top 1%, committing to decisive daily action, embracing pressure as a catalyst, and ensuring that you are always moving forward, always achieving. This audiobook will illuminate the path. The only question is, are you ready to walk it? Chapter 1: The Mindset of a Decisive Executor. There is a core reason why some individuals seem to effortlessly navigate complex situations, make tough calls, and achieve their objectives while others remain mired in indecision and inaction for years. It's not inherent bravery. It's not a higher IQ. It's not even about having more resources. The fundamental difference lies in how they think about action and responsibility in the face of pressure. Most people believe that careful, prolonged deliberation is the hallmark of wisdom, that action should only follow absolute certainty. They treat execution as a final, almost reluctant step after an exhaustive planning phase. They wait for the perfect moment or all the facts before committing. But the reality is, that's where true progress stalls. If you delay action until every doubt is erased and every risk is neutralized, you're already behind. And the worst part? You won't even see the opportunities you missed until they're long gone. Think about it. The landscape of every industry, every career, every personal endeavor is shifting at an unprecedented rate. New challenges demand swift responses. Emerging opportunities require bold moves, And skills that were once prized can become outdated if not actively applied and evolved. If you're not consistently taking decisive action, sharpening your judgment through real-world application, and building your capacity to perform under pressure, you're inadvertently building a prison of inaction that gets harder to escape with each passing day. While you hesitate, the world moves on, leaving you with well-laid plans but no results. And this is where the 1% forge ahead. They don't just tolerate pressure, they often thrive in it. They see decisive action not as a final step, but as an integral, ongoing part of their strategy. A tool for learning, for momentum, and most importantly, for winning. This chapter is about re-engineering your mindset. It's about dismantling the paralyzing belief that inaction is safer than imperfect action. It's about understanding that the most successful individuals aren't those who avoid mistakes by never acting, but those who act, learn, and adapt with speed and conviction. If you can adopt this execution-centric mindset, you will distinguish yourself from 99% of people. You will become adaptable, resilient, and always in motion. So, the question is, are you ready to break free from the shackles of hesitation and think like a decisive executor? Let's begin. 1. Analysis paralysis versus action bias. The defining battle for your future. What if I revealed that your entire trajectory, your achievements, your setbacks, your seized or missed chances, can often be linked to one critical tendency, your default response to uncertainty and complexity? This isn't just a motivational trope. It's a fundamental operational mode. Psychologists and behavioral economists have long studied decision-making. Many individuals, when faced with high stakes or incomplete information, fall into analysis paralysis. They believe that more information, more deliberation, more planning will lead to a better outcome. They think, if I just research this a little more, or let me get one more opinion, or I need to consider every possible scenario. While diligence has its place in analysis paralysis, the process of thinking becomes a substitute for the act of doing. They get stuck in a loop, fearing the commitment of a decision, and as a result, they achieve nothing or act too late. On the other hand, high achievers cultivate an action bias. They understand that in most real-world scenarios, perfect information is a myth and some degree of risk is inevitable. They prioritize movement and learning through doing. They ask themselves, what's the most sensible action I can take right now with the information I have? Or, what's the smallest step forward that will give me more data? They understand that action creates clarity, momentum, and new opportunities, while inaction breeds stagnation and doubt. This small but profound shift in approach is what allows them to continuously advance while others are still at the starting line, polishing their plans. If you want to be ahead of 99% of people, you must cultivate an action bias. Every time you find yourself stuck in overthinking, ask, what one action, however small, can I take today to move this forward? That simple question will retrain your brain to see execution as the primary path to progress, not a dreaded final step. 2. Embracing imperfection as a catalyst for speed. Take a moment and consider the most innovative products, the most successful campaigns, the most impactful ventures. Do you think they emerged perfectly formed on day one? Absolutely not. They were the result of action, iteration, and a willingness to launch with good enough, and refine based on real-world feedback. The pursuit of perfection is one of the greatest enemies of execution. It's what keeps brilliant ideas locked in notebooks, businesses from launching, and individuals from taking the very steps that could lead to their breakthroughs. We are taught that perfect is the goal, but in the world of execution, perfect is often a euphemism for never. The most effective executors understand the principle of the minimum viable product (MVP), not just in software but in all endeavors. What is the leanest version of your idea, your project, your action that you can get into the real world to test, learn, and gather feedback? They'd rather launch something at 80% and learn than wait indefinitely for a hypothetical 100% that may never arrive. Yet, most people are terrified of putting something imperfect out there. They fear judgment, criticism, or failure. Society often conditions us to believe that mistakes are fatal. This is a trap. The individuals who move fastest and achieve the most are those who embrace imperfection as a necessary part of the process. They see failures or criticisms not as indictments of their worth, but as valuable data points on the path to success. So here's a challenge. Start prioritizing speed and iteration over flawless perfection. When you have a plan that is reasonably sound, act on it. When you have an idea, test a small version of it. The more you embrace imperfect action, the faster you will learn, the more momentum you will build, and the more doors will open for you. 3. Overcoming the fear of commitment and making the call. Most people don't fail to execute because they lack a plan. They fail because they are terrified of committing to a course of action when the outcome isn't guaranteed. The fear of making the wrong decision, of closing off other options, of being held accountable for a result, or these fears can be paralyzing. They lead to procrastination, endless deliberation, and ultimately, missed opportunities. Here's the truth. Execution is commitment. It's choosing a path, often with incomplete information, and pouring your energy into it. Every significant achievement in history was born from such a commitment. The great explorers didn't know exactly what they'd find. The pioneering scientists didn't have a guaranteed outcome for their experiments. The visionary entrepreneurs couldn't predict every market turn. But they made a call and they acted. The difference is that decisive executors reframe the concept of failure. They understand that a committed action, even if it doesn't yield the desired immediate result, provides invaluable learning. Inaction, on the other hand, teaches nothing and guarantees zero progress. They'd rather make a decision, learn from it, and adjust, than remain stuck in the limbo of indecision. The moment you stop fearing the commitment of a decision, you become incredibly powerful. You start taking calculated risks. You start learning at an accelerated rate. You start building a track record of action, which itself builds confidence and attracts further opportunities. So, the next time you face a significant decision and feel the pull of hesitation, instead of asking, "What if I'm wrong?" ask yourself, "What is the cost of inaction? And what can I learn by moving forward?" Because if you don't commit to a path, you're already failing by default. 4. The role of self-trust in high-pressure execution. If there's one internal quality that underpins the ability to execute decisively under pressure, it's self-trust. Most people hesitate because, deep down, they don't fully trust their judgment, their abilities, or their resilience to handle potential negative outcomes. They wait for external validation or a sure thing because their internal compass of self-belief is weak. Self-trust is what allows someone to make a difficult call when others are wavering. It's what fuels the courage to act on a conviction even when it's unpopular or fraught with risk. It's the inner knowing that says, "I can figure this out," or "Even if this doesn't go as planned, I will adapt and overcome." Here's the secret. Self-trust isn't an innate gift, it's earned. It's forged in the crucible of past actions, decisions, and challenges overcome. Every time you make a commitment and follow through, every time you face a fear and act anyway, every time you take responsibility for an outcome, good or bad, you make a deposit in your self-trust bank. Conversely, every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you shrink from a challenge you know you should face, every time you blame external factors instead of looking at your own role, you make a withdrawal. If you want to operate at the level of the top 1%, start by intentionally building your self-trust. Make small commitments to yourself daily and honor them. Step into uncomfortable situations and navigate them. Take ownership of your decisions and their consequences. The more you prove to yourself that you are capable and reliable, the less you'll hesitate when the pressure is on, and the more readily you'll execute with power and precision. The most potent tool for execution isn't a better plan. It's unshakable trust in your own ability to make things happen. Chapter 2. The Executor's Library. Reading to sharpen your action-taking edge. Imagine if you could download the decision-making frameworks of the world's greatest leaders, the crisis management strategies of seasoned commanders, or the execution blueprints of billion-dollar empire builders, all without having to learn every lesson the hard way. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, it's not. It's the power embedded within carefully chosen books and texts. Every day, individuals across the globe are honing their ability to act decisively under pressure, not just through direct experience, but by absorbing the distilled wisdom and hard-won lessons of others. While most people consume media for fleeting entertainment or superficial information, a select group understands a profound truth that gives them a distinct advantage. They read with the specific intent to enhance their capacity for effective execution. They don't just read. They study, dissect, and internalize the patterns of successful action. But here's the game changer. You don't need a specialized degree in strategic studies or a direct line to a Fortune 500 CEO. All you need is the habit of strategic reading, consistently and thoughtfully, and you'll be light years ahead of the 99% who believe that the ability to execute under pressure is solely an innate trait or learned only through personal trial and error. This chapter is going to unlock the transformative power of targeted reading and why it's one of the most potent, yet often overlooked, tools for developing an unwavering execution mindset. But it's more than just accumulating knowledge. It's about reading to build mental models, to anticipate challenges, and to internalize the principles of effective action that you can deploy when the stakes are high. If you've ever wondered how great leaders stay calm in a crisis, how entrepreneurs navigate make-or-break decisions, or how high performers consistently deliver when it matters most, a significant part of their preparation often starts with what they read. And if you commit to mastering this habit, you'll be tapping into a vast reservoir of strategic insight that can radically improve your ability to execute. Let's dive into why reading, specifically for execution, isn't just beneficial, it's a critical component of high performance, and how by understanding and embracing it, you'll sharpen your judgment, accelerate your learning curve, and become remarkably more effective under pressure. 1. Why masterful executors are often strategic readers. Have you ever considered why many of the most decisive and effective leaders, from military generals to business titans like Jeff Bezos or Ray Dalio, dedicate significant time to reading? It's not merely a leisurely pursuit. It's a core component of their strategic toolkit for maintaining an execution edge. They read because they know that insight fuels better, faster decisions, and vicarious experience through reading can dramatically shorten the learning curve for effective action. Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, famously emphasizes the importance of principles derived from studying history and successes/failures. Military leaders pore over historical campaigns to understand strategy, tactics, and leadership under fire. They understand that while direct experience is invaluable, one lifetime isn't enough to encounter every possible scenario. Reading allows them to learn from the triumphs and, crucially, the mistakes of countless others. The thing is, most people read passively. They might pick up a business book for general interest or a biography for entertainment. But masterful executors read with a purpose: to extract actionable frameworks, to understand the psychology of decision-making under duress, and to build a mental arsenal of strategies they can deploy. They don't just consume information. They seek out knowledge that directly translates into improved execution capabilities. Here's a powerful thought. What if you could gain the strategic acumen of a seasoned executive, the crisis response instincts of a veteran leader, or the innovative execution patterns of a disruptive entrepreneur, simply by choosing your reading material wisely and engaging with it actively? Because you can. The moment you make strategic reading a habit aimed at enhancing your execution skills, you are opening the door to a higher level of operational effectiveness. 2. Biographies and case studies versus tactical and strategic texts. What to read for execution prowess. Now that we've established that strategic reading is essential for sharpening your execution edge, you might be wondering, what specifically should I be reading? The truth is, different types of material offer different, yet equally valuable contributions to your ability to act decisively under pressure. Let's start with biographies of great leaders, innovators, and executors, as well as in-depth case studies, e.g., historical events, business turnarounds, military campaigns. These narratives offer rich, contextualized lessons. They allow you to see decision-making in action, to understand the pressures faced, the trade-offs considered, and the consequences of choices made. Reading about how someone like Winston Churchill navigated World War II, or how a CEO steered a company through a crisis, provides not just inspiration but also practical insights into human psychology, risk management, and leadership under fire. They help you build if-then scenarios in your mind. On the other hand, tactical and strategic texts offer more explicit frameworks and principles. Books on decision-making science, like Kahneman's Thinking, Fast and Slow, Negotiation, Project Management, or specific industry strategies provide the how-to. These texts can equip you with models for risk assessment, methodologies for agile execution, or techniques for clear communication during high-stakes situations. Think of them as the operating manuals for effective action. So, how do you decide? A balanced approach is often best. Biographies and case studies provide the what and why through compelling stories, building your intuitive understanding and pattern recognition. Tactical and strategic texts provide the how, equipping you with concrete tools and techniques. The most formidable executors often draw from both, blending historical wisdom with cutting-edge methodologies to inform their actions. 3. Active reading for actionable insight. Read to execute, not just to know. One of the biggest pitfalls in reading for self-improvement, especially for enhancing execution, is passive consumption. It's easy to read a book, feel inspired, and then promptly forget its key lessons when faced with a real-world challenge. The secret to truly benefiting from your reading is to engage with the material actively, with the explicit goal of extracting actionable insights. This means reading smarter, not just more. Forget simply trying to get through a book quickly. Instead, focus on deep comprehension and application. Here are some techniques. Read with a question in mind. Before you start a book or chapter, ask yourself, what specific execution challenge am I facing right now that this material might help with? Or what principles of effective action am I looking to learn? This primes your brain to look for relevant information. Take action-oriented notes. Don't just summarize. Write down specific actions you can take, decisions you can make differently, or principles you can apply. Use a system like insight-action for each key takeaway. The Feynman technique for execution. Can you explain the core execution principle from what you read to someone else in simple terms? Better yet, can you outline how you would apply it to a hypothetical or real scenario? If not, you haven't truly internalized it for action. Immediate application. Small scale. Is there a small way you can test or apply an insight from your reading today or this week? Even a minor application reinforces learning far more than passive agreement. Regular review. Don't let your notes gather dust. Periodically review your key actionable insights from past readings, especially when facing new challenges. The goal isn't just to know more. It's to be able to do more effectively, especially when the pressure is on. Active reading transforms books from static sources of information into dynamic tools for enhancing your execution capabilities. 4. The Executor's Bookshelf. Key genres for forging decisive action. While any good book can offer value, certain genres are particularly potent for developing the mindset and skills of a decisive executor. If you're serious about leveling up your ability to act under pressure, consider prioritizing these. Biographies and memoirs of great leaders and achievers. Look for those who faced immense adversity and made critical decisions, e.g. military leaders, wartime politicians, turnaround CEOs, pioneering explorers. Pay attention to their decision-making process, their mindset under stress, and how they rallied others. Books on strategy and tactics, military, business, sports texts like Sun Tzu's The Art of War, or modern business strategy books that focus on competitive dynamics and execution, provide timeless principles applicable across many domains. Sports psychology books on peak performance under pressure are also invaluable. Decision-making and behavioral economics. Understanding cognitive biases, heuristics, and frameworks for making better choices, e.g., works by Daniel Kahneman, Amos Tversky, Richard Thaler, Annie Duke, is crucial for anyone who needs to make high-stakes calls. Psychology of resilience and crisis management. Books that delve into how individuals and organizations cope with and thrive through extreme stress, setbacks, and crises can equip you with mental fortitude and practical coping mechanisms. Case study compilations. Harvard Business Review case studies, historical analyses of pivotal events, or books that break down specific successes and failures offer deep, contextual learning about execution in practice. The key is to curate a bookshelf that actively feeds your ability to think clearly, decide wisely, and act decisively, especially when the chips are down. When you read with the intention of becoming a better executor, every page can hold a lesson. 5. Building an execution-focused reading habit that sticks. Reading strategically for improved execution isn't just a one-time activity. It's a lifelong commitment. So, how do you make it a regular, impactful part of your routine, especially when life gets busy? The key, as with all powerful habits, is consistency and intentionality. The most effective executors don't just read when they have a major crisis looming. They are constantly sharpening their mental axe. Schedule it. Don't leave reading to chance. Dedicate even 15 to 30 minutes a day specifically for execution-focused reading. Treat it like an important meeting. Be selective. You can't read everything. Prioritize books and materials that directly address areas where you want to improve your execution capabilities. Don't be afraid to put a book down if it's not delivering actionable value for this purpose. Integrate with action. The goal is to bridge the gap between reading and doing. Actively look for opportunities to apply what you're learning. Discuss insights with a mentor or colleague. Variety and depth. Mix biographies with tactical texts. Sometimes go deep into one specific area, e.g., decision-making under uncertainty, for a period. Embrace discomfort. Some of the most valuable reading for execution might challenge your existing beliefs or highlight your weaknesses. Lean into this discomfort. It's where growth happens. Reading is more than just information acquisition. When approached strategically, it's a powerful tool for forging the mind of a decisive executor. It's a pathway to learning from the best, anticipating challenges, and arming yourself with the wisdom to act with confidence and precision when it matters most. If you're serious about staying ahead of 99% of people in your ability to get things done under pressure, make strategic reading a cornerstone of your personal development. The insights you gain will not only inform your actions, but will also build the deep-seated confidence that fuels unwavering execution. Ready to turn the page and build your executor's library? Your future effectiveness depends on it. Chapter 3. The Momentum Engine. Consistency and Small, Decisive Daily Habits for Unstoppable Execution. Have you ever wondered why you can meticulously plan a project, feel a surge of motivation to tackle a major challenge, yet when it comes to the crunch, the actual sustained effort of execution, especially when obstacles arise, you find yourself faltering, procrastinating, or losing steam? You're doing all the right thinking, or so it seems. You've set ambitious goals, you have a strategy, you're committed, at least in theory. Yet, day by day, the gap between intention and decisive, impactful action widens. The problem often lies in a fundamental misunderstanding of how the capacity for high-stakes execution is truly built. While grand strategies and bursts of intense effort have their place, the real secret to consistently performing under pressure and achieving meaningful results lies in small, decisive daily actions performed with unwavering consistency over time. That's the engine of momentum. It's tempting to get mesmerized by tales of heroic, one-off acts of brilliance or dramatic turnarounds, especially in our highlight reel culture. But the truth is, sustainable, high-level execution isn't forged in those rare, high-visibility moments alone. It's cultivated in the daily, often unseen, practice of making choices, taking action, and following through, even when the pressure is subtle or the task seems minor. These daily reps of decisiveness build the muscle and the mindset for when the stakes are truly high. This chapter is all about understanding the immense, often underestimated power of consistency in small, decisive habits. Because once you truly grasp this concept and implement it, you'll realize that the key to becoming a formidable executor was always within your reach. It just wasn't as glamorous or instantaneous as you might have been led to believe. But make no mistake, small, consistently executed decisive actions have the power to fundamentally transform your ability to perform under any and all conditions. 1. The myth of the big push. Why sustainable execution is built daily, not dramatically. We've all been exposed to narratives that glorify the all-nighter, the crunch time, the heroic effort that saves the day at the last minute. The media loves these stories. The entrepreneur who pulls off an impossible launch in a week, the leader who makes a single, game-changing decision under immense pressure. But what these stories often omit are the months, or even years, of consistent, less dramatic daily execution that laid the groundwork for that overnight success or that moment of brilliance. The truth is, Relying solely on big push moments for execution is a recipe for burnout, inconsistency, and often failure. The capacity to execute effectively under pressure isn't a switch you can just flip when needed. It's a condition, a state of readiness, built through relentless daily practice. Every decisive action, no matter how small, is a deposit into your execution capability account. We live in a world that often rewards the appearance of dramatic effort. But here's the reality. Sustainable, high-level execution doesn't work that way. The most effective executors understand that real power comes from building a consistent rhythm of action. They've learned to trust the process of daily engagement and follow-through. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by a large task or paralyzed when facing a high-pressure situation, step back and consider the power of daily, incremental execution. If you consistently practice making decisions and acting on them in lower-stakes environments, the ability to do so when the pressure mounts will feel far more natural and less daunting. The results will come, not from one massive heroic act, but from the cumulative force of your daily decisiveness. 2. The power of action microhabits. Why they matter more than grand intentions for execution. It's easy to get fixated on grand strategic plans or monumental goals. We all want to make bold moves and achieve significant outcomes. But there's a danger in this big-picture-only mindset. Grand intentions can be paralyzing. They often seem so complex or distant that you don't even know where to begin the actual execution. That's where action microhabits come into play. Think of them as the fundamental building blocks of your execution capacity. Small, consistent, decisive actions performed daily might seem insignificant in isolation. They might even feel trivial. You might ask yourself, does making that one difficult phone call today really matter? Or, does tackling that one small, uncomfortable task on my list truly build my execution muscle? The answer is an emphatic yes. Here's why. Action microhabits compound their effect. They might not look like much on day one, but if you stay consistent, they build powerful momentum and skill. They build decision-making speed. Regularly making small decisions and acting on them trains your brain to process information and commit to a course of action more quickly. They reduce procrastination. Committing to a small, decisive action is less intimidating than facing a huge, undefined task. This breaks the cycle of avoidance. They cultivate a bias for action. The more you act, the more acting becomes your default mode, rather than overthinking. They build resilience. Successfully executing small, uncomfortable tasks daily builds your tolerance for discomfort, which is crucial for high-pressure situations. The beauty of action microhabits is that they don't require a massive reserve of willpower or a perfectly clear path. They are sustainable and immediately actionable. Over time, you'll realize that these seemingly tiny daily acts of execution accumulate into a formidable capacity to handle much larger challenges. For example, if you commit to identifying and completing just one uncomfortable but necessary action related to your goals each day, it might seem small. But after a month, you've decisively handled 30 such items. After a year, you've built an undeniable track record of execution and a significantly higher tolerance for challenging tasks. Now imagine applying this to various facets of your work and life. The results will be transformative. Action microhabits aren't about achieving a massive outcome immediately. They're about consistently doing and building the executor within one small, decisive step at a time. 3. How to forge an unbreakable execution habit that lasts. Building a new habit around decisive action, especially when it involves stepping out of your comfort zone, isn't always easy, but it's simpler than most people imagine. The secret lies in understanding that habits are forged in small, consistent repetitions. The more consistently you practice decisive action, the more ingrained it becomes. But like any skill, it requires deliberate effort and patience, particularly at the outset. Here's how you can build an execution habit that sticks. Start absurdly small, but decisive. Don't try to transform into a hyper-executor overnight. Focus on one tiny, decisive action you can take daily. It could be as simple as, make one decision I've been putting off within 5 minutes of identifying it, or tackle the most dreaded small task on my list first thing. Identify clear action triggers. To make the habit stick, Link your desired decisive action to an existing routine or a specific cue. For example, after my morning coffee trigger, I will identify and commit to my one decisive microaction for the day. Emphasize consistency above all. The linchpin of building a lasting execution habit is consistency. The more frequently you repeat the decisive action, the stronger the neural pathways for that behavior become. Eventually, acting decisively in small ways will feel more automatic. Track your decisive actions. Use a journal, a simple checklist, or an app to note your daily decisive actions. This act of tracking reinforces the habit, provides a sense of accomplishment, and makes it easier to stay on course. It's visual proof of your growing execution capacity. Be patient with the discomfort phase. Initially, forcing yourself to be decisive, especially on things you'd rather avoid, will feel uncomfortable. Expect this. The goal is to push through this initial resistance until the discomfort lessens and the feeling of accomplishment from acting becomes the stronger reward. Reward the act of execution, not just the outcome. When you successfully take a decisive action, especially one you were hesitant about, acknowledge it. This reinforces the behavior and motivates you to continue. The reward can be internal, a sense of pride, or a small, tangible token. Building a new habit of decisive execution might feel challenging initially, but once you push through the early stages of resistance, it becomes progressively easier. Over time, these small daily acts will accumulate into a powerful, almost instinctive ability to execute effectively. 4. Why relying on feeling ready is an execution trap and what to rely on instead. Most people believe that to execute effectively, especially under pressure, they need to feel ready, confident, or motivated. They wait for that internal state of assurance before taking action. While feeling good can be a bonus, relying on it as a prerequisite for execution is a significant trap. Here's why. Feelings are notoriously fickle and unreliable. One day you might feel bold and capable. The next, doubt and hesitation can creep in. If your ability to act decisively is contingent on your emotional state, your execution will be inconsistent at best and paralyzed at worst. So, what's the secret to consistent execution if not feeling ready? Systems and commitments. The most effective executors rely on pre-established systems, routines, and unwavering commitments to guide their actions, rather than fleeting emotional states. System for decision-making. They have a framework, even an informal one, for how they approach decisions, especially under pressure. This might involve identifying key criteria, consulting specific advisors, or setting a time limit for deliberation. Pre-commitments. They make commitments to action before the pressure hits or emotions run high. For example, if X scenario occurs, my predetermined action will be Y. This removes in-the-moment emotional interference. Action-oriented routines. They build routines that force action. For instance, a leader might have a routine of immediately delegating or scheduling action items at the end of every meeting, rather than letting them linger. Focus on process, not feelings. Instead of asking, "Do I feel like doing this?" they ask, "What does my process/commitment require me to do now?" By implementing systems and honoring commitments, you reduce the reliance on subjective feelings and make decisive execution a more objective, repeatable process. You act not because you feel like it, but because it's the necessary, predetermined step. 5. The compounding power of decisive actions. How small moves create unstoppable execution momentum. The compound effect isn't just for finance. It's a fundamental principle that governs the development of your execution capabilities. Small, consistent, decisive actions taken over time will result in an exponential increase in your ability to act effectively, especially when it matters most. This is one of the most powerful concepts you can internalize. Consider this. If you make just one small, decisive move each day that pushes you slightly out of your comfort zone or resolves a point of indecision, it might seem insignificant initially. But after a year, you've made 365 such moves. The cumulative effect isn't just 365 isolated actions. It's the development of a deeply ingrained habit of decisiveness, increased confidence from a track record of action, and a significantly higher threshold for handling pressure. That's the compounding power of daily execution. The same principle applies to building any skill related to execution, be it clear communication under stress, rapid problem solving, or leading a team through uncertainty. If you consistently practice these elements in small ways, you'll eventually reach a level of proficiency that most people, who only attempt these things sporadically or when forced by a crisis, can only dream of. The path to becoming a master executor isn't a sprint. It's a marathon of consistent, daily, decisive steps. The action microhabits you forge today will shape your capacity to perform under pressure in ways you can't yet fully comprehend. If you want to distinguish yourself from the 99% who are often paralyzed by indecision or who crumble when the heat is on, start small. Focus on building daily habits of decisive action. Trust in the process, stay consistent, and know that your ability to execute is not defined by a single heroic moment, but by the relentless momentum you build, one decisive act at a time. Remember, the capacity for powerful execution isn't about waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect feeling. It's about showing up, making a call, and taking action every single day, especially when it's a little uncomfortable. The consistency of your small, decisive actions will carry you further and build a more resilient execution capability than any isolated burst of effort ever could. Chapter 4. The Executor's Shield. Mastering focus to cut through noise and drive decisive action. Have you ever had a critical task demanding immediate, decisive action, a high-stakes decision looming, only to find your attention fractured, your mind racing with a dozen other thoughts, and your ability to commit to a single course of action undermined? You start the day with a clear objective, a plan to execute, but then the barrage begins. An avalanche of emails, an endless stream of notifications, urgent, but not always important, demands from others. Before you know it, hours have evaporated, and that crucial execution point has been deferred, diluted, or disastrously delayed. Sound familiar? You are not alone. The modern world is an all-out assault on your ability to concentrate, and this directly cripples your capacity for decisive execution. Every app, every alert, every breaking news update is a meticulously engineered interruption designed to splinter your focus. Corporations invest fortunes in behavioral science to ensure you keep clicking, keep scrolling, keep reacting, pulling you away from the deep, concentrated effort required for meaningful execution, especially when the pressure is on. And here's the unvarnished truth. You cannot execute effectively, let alone decisively under pressure, if your focus is constantly fragmented. The individuals who achieve extraordinary results, who navigate crises with calm, who consistently deliver when it counts, aren't necessarily endowed with more hours in the day or a higher stress threshold by birth. They are, quite simply, masters of focus. They have learned to fiercely protect their attention and direct it with surgical precision towards the actions that matter most. While the majority are buffeted by distractions, chasing 1,000 trivialities, and reacting to the immediate at the expense of the important, high-impact executors operate from a place of deliberate, unwavering concentration. They understand that focused attention is the bedrock of clear thinking, sound judgment, and powerful execution. If you feel like you're constantly battling distractions, if your days are a blur of activity without meaningful progress on your key execution points, if you know you're capable of more decisive action but can't seem to find the mental space to commit, this chapter will be a revelation. You're about to discover how to reclaim your focus, eliminate the noise that sabotages execution, and finally build the mental stillness required to act with power and precision, no matter the circumstances. 1. The myth of pressure multitasking. Why divided attention destroys decisive execution. For years, the ability to multitask, especially under pressure, has been touted as a desirable skill. Job descriptions often list it, and individuals boast about their capacity to juggle numerous critical tasks simultaneously. But here's what rigorous scientific research and the experience of top performers consistently demonstrate. True multitasking, especially on complex or high-stakes actions, is a cognitive illusion and a profound execution killer. Your brain is not designed to consciously focus on multiple demanding tasks at the exact same moment. What you perceive as multitasking is, in reality, rapid task switching. And each switch incurs a mental cost, a cognitive switching penalty. Studies show this constant shifting can slash your effectiveness by up to 40% and significantly increase error rates. Even more critically for execution under pressure, it elevates stress levels, impairs judgment, and severely diminishes your ability to engage in the deep, concentrated thought required for optimal decision-making and follow-through. Think about the last time you were trying to make a critical decision or execute a complex step, and your phone buzzed, an urgent email popped up, or a colleague interrupted. Even if the interruption was brief, your mental state was disrupted. It takes a surprisingly long time, often cited as over 20 minutes, to fully re-engage your focus at the same depth after an interruption. Now, multiply that by the dozens or even hundreds of micro-interruptions many people experience daily. It's no wonder that decisive, high-quality execution becomes nearly impossible. You end up feeling perpetually busy, stressed, and reactive, but the needle on truly important actions barely moves. If you aspire to join the top 1% of effective executors, you must train yourself for singular, deep focus on the execution point at hand. When you dedicate your full, undivided attention to a critical task or decision, you will achieve a level of clarity, precision, and speed in your execution that is simply unattainable for those whose attention is scattered. 2. The modern battlefield, digital distractions and their assault on your execution capacity. Your smartphone, your laptop, the internet, these are among the most powerful tools ever invented for information access and communication. However, they are also, in their current, untamed state, among the most potent destroyers of the focused attention required for decisive execution. Social media platforms, instant messaging apps, news feeds, and endless email notifications are not benign tools. They are highly optimized attention hijacking systems. The more time you spend reacting to this digital deluge, the less mental bandwidth you have for the deep work of strategic thinking and purposeful action. Consider this alarming statistic. The average person is estimated to check their phone hundreds of times a day. Each check, however brief, is a micro-interruption, a small tear in the fabric of your focus. And once your attention is chronically fragmented, engaging in the sustained, deep concentration needed to, for example, analyze a complex problem before acting, or to meticulously carry out a multi-step execution plan under pressure, becomes extraordinarily difficult. But it's not just our phones. Constantly open email inboxes, a browser with 20 tabs, background noise from televisions or open-plan offices, all contribute to a state of continuous partial attention. The insidious result? You operate in a reactive mode, your cognitive resources are depleted, and your ability to think clearly and act decisively is severely compromised. You feel mentally drained by the end of the day, yet the truly critical execution items remain untouched or poorly handled. The solution is not to abandon technology, but to consciously architect a low-distraction environment conducive to focused execution. Neutralize notifications. Your default should be all notifications off, especially for non-critical apps. You don't need an audible or visual alert for every like, comment, or promotional email. Strategic disconnection. When a task requires deep focus for effective execution, e.g., making a critical decision, drafting an important proposal, solving a complex problem, put your phone in airplane mode, close your email client, and shut down all unnecessary applications. Use Do Not Disturb modes aggressively. Batch communication. Instead of constantly monitoring email and messages, designate specific, limited blocks of time for checking and responding. This reclaims vast swathes of focused time for execution. Time-blocked execution sprints. Employ techniques like the Pomodoro method, e.g., 50 minutes of focused work on a specific execution task, followed by a 10-minute break. This trains your brain for sustained concentration and prevents mental fatigue from derailing your execution. By taking deliberate control of your digital and physical environment, you reclaim precious hours of focused attention daily. And those focused hours are the currency of high-impact execution. 3. The science of flow state for execution, how to enter a zone of unstoppable action. There's a reason why elite athletes perform incredible feats in high-pressure games, why master musicians can play complex pieces flawlessly, or why brilliant strategists can devise game-changing plans amidst chaos. They have mastered the ability to enter a state of deep work or flow, a state of complete absorption in the task at hand, where focus is effortless, time seems to warp and performance peaks. Flow is the pinnacle of focused execution. It's when your mind is operating at its full capacity, not just thinking, but doing with incredible efficiency and precision. This is where your best, most decisive actions originate. But flow isn't some mystical state that just happens. It's a physiological and psychological condition that you can learn to cultivate, especially for critical execution tasks. Eliminate all external distractions. This is non-negotiable. Find a quiet space, silence all alerts, and communicate to others that you need uninterrupted time. Clear, specific execution goal. You need to know exactly what you are trying to achieve in that focus session. Vague intentions like work on the project don't induce flow. A specific goal like draft the 3 key arguments for the proposal or solve the specific bottleneck in the plan does. Match challenge with skill. Slight stretch. The task should be challenging enough to require your full attention, but not so overwhelming that it causes anxiety. It should stretch your current execution capabilities slightly. Immediate feedback loops. If possible for some tasks, you can see the immediate results of your actions, e.g., writing code, solving a math problem. For others, you might need to create your own feedback mechanism, e.g., reviewing progress against your specific goal at intervals. Use rituals to trigger focus. Many high performers have pre-execution rituals that signal to their brain it's time to enter a focus state. This could be anything from a specific type of music, instrumental often works best, a short meditation, or organizing their workspace in a particular way. The more you deliberately practice creating the conditions for flow, the easier it will become to access this state when you need to execute critical tasks. And once you can reliably tap into flow, your ability to act decisively and effectively, even under pressure, will skyrocket. You'll accomplish in focused hours what takes others unfocused days. 4. The power of no. Guarding your execution bandwidth like a strategic asset. One of the most potent, yet often underutilized, tools for preserving the focus needed for decisive execution is the simple, powerful word, no. Every time you say yes to a low-priority task, a distracting meeting, or an obligation that doesn't align with your critical execution path, you are implicitly saying no to the focused time and energy required for what truly matters. The world's most effective executors, billionaires, top CEOs, elite performers, guard their time and attention with a ferocity that many find surprising, even ruthless. They understand that their capacity to execute on high-impact objectives is their most valuable, non-renewable resource. They don't clutter their schedules with trivialities or allow their focus to be siphoned off by the agendas of others if it compromises their core mission. If you want to protect the mental bandwidth necessary for high-stakes execution, say no to unnecessary distractions. This includes mindlessly scrolling social media, getting drawn into irrelevant online debates, or consuming low-value content. Say no to non-essential meetings. Not every meeting invitation requires your presence. Politely decline or delegate if your attendance doesn't directly contribute to a critical execution outcome. Question the agenda and necessity of every meeting. Say no to scope creep and low-value requests. Protect your core execution priorities. Learn to deflect or defer requests that, while perhaps well-intentioned, will pull you away from what's most important. Say no to energy vampires. People who consistently drain your mental and emotional energy also deplete your capacity for focused execution. Limit your exposure. Your time and your focus are the fuel for decisive action. Spend them with extreme prejudice on the things that will yield the greatest results. The world is clearly bifurcated. There are the distracted masses, their attention constantly hijacked, their execution power diluted, and there are the focused few who command their attention and, consequently, command results. Most will drift through their careers and lives in a state of reactive distraction, wondering why their best-laid plans never materialize. But a small, disciplined percentage will break free. If you are committed to being among the top 1% in your ability to execute under pressure, if you want to achieve outcomes that most only dream about, then mastering focus isn't just a good idea, it's an absolute imperative. Starting today, make a conscious, unwavering commitment. Reclaim your focus. Annihilate distractions. Say no to the trivial. Become relentlessly intentional with your attention. Do this, and you will unlock a capacity for decisive execution that will astound you and leave your unfocused competitors far behind. Are you ready to step into the quiet power of unwavering focus? Your most impactful actions depend on it. Chapter 5. The Executor's Resolve. Forging self-discipline for unwavering action in the face of adversity. You've felt it, haven't you? That initial surge of determination when facing a critical task or a high-stakes challenge. The kind of resolve that makes you declare, "This time, I will see this through, no matter what." Perhaps it was after a setback that ignited your fighting spirit, a powerful insight that clarified your path, or witnessing someone else's decisive action. You told yourself, "This is it. I'm going to execute flawlessly." And for a while, perhaps a few days or even a couple of weeks, you did. You were focused, you made the tough calls, you pushed through initial discomfort, you took action despite uncertainty. You felt like an unstoppable force of execution. But then, almost imperceptibly, something shifted. One day, the pressure felt a bit heavier, the path a little murkier, the fear of a misstep a bit louder. You told yourself, "Maybe I should pause and rethink this." Or, "I'll tackle that really hard part tomorrow." Then tomorrow became the next day, and then the next. Soon, you weren't just pausing, you were avoiding. You were back in the familiar territory of hesitation, your execution engine stalled, feeling frustrated and wondering why your initial resolve always seems to evaporate when the real grit is required. This cycle is agonizingly common, and the worst part? Each time your resolve crumbles under pressure, your self-trust erodes a little more. This is the stark reality of relying on fleeting motivation or initial enthusiasm for execution. It's unreliable. It peaks and troughs, lifting you one moment only to abandon you when the execution gets truly challenging, leaving you stranded. And this is precisely why most people never achieve consistent, high-level execution, especially when adversity strikes. They depend on feeling like executing, when what they truly need is the bedrock of self-discipline. Discipline is the invisible scaffolding that supports every great executor. It's the capacity to take necessary action even when you don't feel like it, to adhere to your execution plan despite temptations to deviate, to do the hard, uncomfortable work when no one is cheering you on, and especially when fear or doubt are screaming in your ear. While the majority are waiting for the right mood or perfect conditions to act, the most effective individuals have already mastered the art of pushing forward, driven by commitment, not by feeling. This chapter will dismantle your old notions about what it takes to execute under pressure. You'll learn why self-discipline, not just talent or intelligence or even a brilliant plan, is your most formidable weapon for consistent action, and how to cultivate it so you can break free from the cycle of stalled execution once and for all. If you've ever wondered why some individuals seem to relentlessly advance on their goals, navigating obstacles with unshakable resolve, while others are constantly derailed by pressure or discomfort, this is the core differentiator. The secret isn't a lack of fear. It's the presence of discipline that overpowers that fear and compels action. 1. The motivation mirage. Why feeling like it is the enemy of high-stakes execution. Most people operate under the dangerous illusion that to execute effectively, especially on difficult or intimidating tasks, they need to feel motivated. They believe that if they could just summon more enthusiasm or inspiration, they would finally be able to take consistent, decisive action. But motivation, particularly in the context of sustained, high-pressure execution, is a mirage. It's ephemeral, inconsistent, and highly susceptible to external circumstances and internal emotional states. You might wake up one day feeling fired up, ready to conquer any challenge. But the next day, you could be tired, overwhelmed, facing unexpected bad news, or simply not in the zone. If your ability to execute hinges on feeling motivated, you are setting yourself up for chronic failure and inconsistency. Motivation is like a tailwind, nice when it's there, but you can't steer your ship by it, especially in a storm. High-stakes execution often requires sailing directly into headwinds of discomfort, uncertainty, and fear. This is why so many ambitious plans and well-intentioned goals die on the vine. People start with a burst of motivation, But when that initial spark inevitably dims and the hard work of execution truly begins, the part that requires pushing through tedious details, making uncomfortable calls, or facing potential criticism, they falter. They misdiagnose the problem as a lack of motivation and search for external fixes. Another inspirational quote, a new productivity hack, a pep talk. But no matter how many times they try to reignite that initial feeling, they eventually hit the same wall of inaction when the going gets tough. The truth is, your success as an executor isn't determined by how motivated you feel on any given day. It's determined by what you do when you feel zero motivation, when you're scared, when you're tired, or when every fiber of your being wants to avoid the necessary action. Self-discipline is the engine that powers you through those moments. It's the learned skill that separates those who consistently deliver results from those who are perpetually about to start. If you continue to wait for motivation before you execute, you will remain trapped. The key is to uncouple action from feeling. You must learn to execute based on commitment and necessity, not on the fickle whims of your emotional state. 2. The mechanics of executors' discipline, forging willpower through deliberate action. Self-discipline, particularly the kind required for consistent execution under pressure, isn't an innate personality trait you're either born with or without. It's a mental muscle. The more you consciously train it through deliberate action, the stronger and more reliable it becomes. Conversely, if you consistently avoid exercising it, it atrophies. At its core, self-discipline for execution is about consistently choosing the necessary, often uncomfortable action over the easier, more comfortable inaction or distraction, especially when faced with internal resistance, fear, doubt, fatigue, or external pressure. Your brain, by default, is wired for comfort and immediate gratification. It wants to avoid perceived threats, like the risk of failure in a high-stakes execution, and seek pleasure, like the temporary relief of procrastination. That's why it often feels easier to defer a difficult decision than to make it, easier to avoid a challenging task than to tackle it head-on, easier to get lost in busy work than to confront the critical execution point that scares you. Your brain isn't inherently programmed for long-term, high-stakes execution success. It's programmed for short-term survival and comfort. But here's the empowering news. You can consciously rewire these default pathways. You can train your brain to associate a deeper sense of reward with the act of disciplined execution, rather than with the temporary relief of avoidance. Every time you choose to take a necessary, albeit uncomfortable, action despite your fear or reluctance, you strengthen the neural pathways for disciplined behavior. You are, in effect, telling your brain, this is who we are now. We act even when it's hard. Acknowledge the resistance, then act anyway. Don't try to suppress the fear or discomfort. Acknowledge it. Okay, I feel anxious about making this call. Then, take the action, but I am going to make it in the next 5 minutes because it's critical. This builds the muscle of acting despite negative feelings. Start with discipline microdoses. Just as you wouldn't try to lift the heaviest weight in the gym on day 1, don't aim for perfect, unwavering discipline on massive tasks immediately. Start by applying discipline to smaller, manageable execution points. Consistently follow through on these. Each small win builds the muscle. Focus on the process of execution, not just the outcome. The reward shouldn't solely be tied to a successful outcome, which you can't always control. Reward yourself internally for the act of disciplined execution itself, for showing up, for making the call, for pushing through the resistance. This makes the process of discipline itself more reinforcing. Initially, exercising this kind of discipline will feel like a struggle. But with consistent practice, the resistance lessens, and the act of disciplined execution starts to feel more natural, more like your default mode. Once you develop this, your capacity to execute under pressure becomes truly formidable. 3. The no matter what execution rule, eliminating the option of inaction. Excuses are the assassins of execution. Every time you allow yourself an excuse for not taking a necessary action, I'm too tired, I don't have all the information, the timing isn't right, maybe someone else will handle it. You reinforce the habit of avoidance and chip away at your execution resolve. If you constantly tell yourself and others why you can't or won't execute, You are training your brain to accept inaction as a valid response to pressure or difficulty. The most disciplined executors operate under a simple but profoundly powerful principle, the no matter what execution rule. They don't allow themselves to negotiate with their commitments or their fears when it comes to critical actions. They don't debate internally whether they feel like doing something they've deemed necessary. They just do it. To eliminate excuses and cultivate this no matter what mindset for execution. Define your non-negotiable execution points. For any given goal or project, identify the critical actions that must happen. These become your non-negotiables. There is no debate about whether they get done. The only question is how and when, within the committed time frame. Remove feeling from the execution equation. When it's time to act on a non-negotiable, your feelings about it are irrelevant. The decision to act has already been made. Your job is simply to execute. The burn the boats mentality for critical actions for truly pivotal execution points, mentally or sometimes literally, remove any option of retreat or avoidance. When you have no choice but to move forward and execute, your focus and resourcefulness intensify. Anticipate and preempt excuses. Before you even begin a challenging execution phase, think about the excuses your mind is likely to generate. Decide in advance how you will counter them and commit to acting despite them. The moment you stop making excuses for inaction, you reclaim an immense amount of power over your ability to execute. A useful mental trick. Don't think, just start. The more time you give yourself to ruminate and debate whether or not to take a difficult action, the more likely fear and procrastination are to win. Remove the internal negotiation. If it's a non-negotiable execution item, it gets done. Period. 4. The pain of regret from inaction versus the discomfort of disciplined execution. Here's a stark choice you face daily as an executor. You will experience discomfort either way. If you lack the discipline to execute, especially on important but challenging tasks, you will inevitably experience the deep, gnawing pain of regret. It's the disappointment of knowing you could have acted but didn't. It's the frustration of seeing opportunities pass you by because you hesitated. It's looking back at goals unachieved, potential unfulfilled, and time wasted, all because you shied away from the necessary actions. The pain of regret from inaction is profound, long-lasting, and often irreversible. On the other hand, disciplined execution has its own form of discomfort. It's the temporary strain of pushing yourself when you're tired, the anxiety of making a tough call with imperfect information, the friction of confronting an obstacle head-on. But unlike the pain of regret, this discomfort is short-lived and productive. It's the feeling of growth, of progress, of building strength. Every time you choose disciplined execution over the comfort of avoidance, you take a tangible step towards your goals and strengthen your resolve for future challenges. Every difficult decision made, every moment of resistance overcome, every act of disciplined follow-through compounds over time, creating results and a level of personal agency that those who choose inaction can only dream of. So, ask yourself constantly, which discomfort do I choose? The temporary, empowering discomfort of disciplined action, or the enduring, debilitating pain of regret from inaction? Self-discipline isn't just about forcing yourself to do things. It's about consciously choosing the path that leads to long-term achievement and self-respect, even when it's the harder path in the short term. The more disciplined you are in your execution today, the more freedom, options, and success you will create for your future. The more you train yourself to stay focused on the necessary actions, push through discomfort, and eliminate excuses, the more power you will wield over your outcomes and your life. Starting today, make an unwavering commitment. Stop relying on fleeting motivation. Stop making excuses for inaction. Stop giving yourself permission to falter when the pressure is on. Instead, become the kind of individual who executes what needs to be done, no matter what. Because ultimately, success in any endeavor isn't about who has the most brilliant ideas or the most favorable circumstances. It's about who has the discipline to show up, especially when it's hard, and consistently execute. Chapter 6. The Unstoppable Executioner. Mastering consistency to dominate under pressure and achieve any goal. You've been there. You identified a critical objective, a high-stakes project, or a challenging but necessary course of action. You mapped out the initial steps, and for those first few days, maybe even a week, you were a model of execution. You made the calls, you tackled the uncomfortable tasks, you moved with decisiveness and purpose. You told yourself, this time, I'm going to see this all the way through. This time, I will not falter. But then, as the initial adrenaline waned and the true, sustained effort of execution set in, something familiar happened. Life intervened. The pressure mounted. Perhaps the immediate results weren't as spectacular as you'd hoped. Maybe the path became less clear or new, unexpected obstacles emerged. And just like that, another crucial execution plan lost momentum. Another vital objective slipped from your grasp, joining the graveyard of well-intentioned but uncompleted initiatives. Now, pause and honestly reflect. Think about all the critical projects you've started but didn't consistently execute to completion, especially when the going got tough. If you had maintained unwavering, consistent action on even half of them, where would you be today? How many more significant achievements would be under your belt? How much more effective would you be at handling pressure? The thought can be unsettling, can't it? But here's the unvarnished reality. Consistency in execution is the single most powerful determinant that separates those who thrive under pressure and achieve extraordinary results from those who remain stuck in a cycle of starting and stopping. It's not raw talent. It's not a single stroke of luck. It's not even superior intelligence. It is the unwavering ability to show up and execute the necessary actions, day in and day out, especially when you don't feel like it, especially when you're tired, especially when progress feels agonizingly slow, and most importantly, especially when the pressure is on. The primary reason most people fail to achieve their most ambitious goals is not because they are incapable or lack good plans, but because they abandon the execution process too soon. They expect immediate, dramatic breakthroughs, and when those don't materialize, or when the path becomes arduous, they quit or allow their efforts to dissipate. But significant achievement, particularly in high-stakes environments, isn't about one massive, heroic push. It's about relentless, steady, consistent application of effort and decisive action over a sustained period. And the most empowering part? Once you truly master consistency in your execution, success under pressure ceases to be a matter of chance. It becomes an almost inevitable outcome. If you've ever struggled to maintain decisive action long enough to see real, impactful results, especially when faced with challenges, this chapter is going to fundamentally change your approach. By the time you finish reading, you will understand precisely why consistent execution is your most potent weapon and how to wield it to dominate any challenge and achieve any goal, no matter the pressure. 1. The hidden power of small, repeated decisive actions in high-stakes scenarios. Most people mistakenly believe that successful execution, especially when the pressure is immense, comes from grand, sweeping maneuvers or perfectly timed, heroic interventions. They think they need to conjure up extraordinary feats of willpower or genius to overcome significant obstacles. But in reality, sustained success under pressure is almost always the result of small, decisive actions, repeated with unwavering consistency over time. It's not about pulling an all-nighter to solve a crisis. It's about the daily disciplines that prevent many crises from occurring or equip you to handle them methodically when they do. Think about it in the context of a high-pressure profession like surgery. A master surgeon's ability to perform flawlessly in a life-or-death situation isn't just about what they do in that operating room. It's the result of thousands of hours of consistent practice, of repeatedly executing fundamental procedures with precision, of daily disciplined study, and of consistently making small, critical judgments correctly, building a foundation of skill and calm that can be drawn upon when the stakes are highest. Imagine two project leaders tasked with a complex, high-pressure initiative. Leader A waits for big blocks of inspiration or crisis mode to make major pushes. Their execution is sporadic, intense, and reactive. Leader B commits to 1 to 2 hours of focused, decisive action on the project every single day, addressing small issues before they become large ones, making incremental progress, and consistently communicating with their team. After a few days, the difference might be negligible. After a few weeks, Leader B is likely to be steadily advancing, while Leader A might be lurching between periods of intense activity and stagnation. After several months, Leader B will have built an undeniable momentum, navigated numerous small challenges with consistent action, and will be far better equipped to handle any major unforeseen pressures. Leader A, relying on sporadic bursts, is more likely to be overwhelmed and behind. The same principle applies to developing personal resilience for pressure, mastering a complex skill needed for a critical role, or building a business. The small, decisive choices you make and act upon daily, whether to confront a difficult conversation, to tackle a complex but necessary task, or to stick to a disciplined routine despite distractions, compound over time. They build not just progress, but also your capacity for future execution. The problem is, most people lack the patience and foresight to appreciate this compounding effect of consistent, small, decisive actions. They crave instant results, immediate validation. When they don't see rapid, dramatic rewards from their initial efforts, they assume their approach isn't working and abandon it, never realizing that the most powerful breakthroughs in execution often come from staying consistent long enough for the cumulative effect to take hold. If you can shift your mindset to prioritize long-term consistency in decisive action over short-term, unsustainable intensity, you will immediately differentiate yourself from 99% of people. Because while most are chasing the next big win, or waiting for the perfect moment to execute, you will be quietly, relentlessly building unstoppable momentum and an unshakable capacity to perform under pressure. 2. Why execution motivation falters under pressure, and how consistent action overcomes it. One of the greatest impediments to sustained execution, especially when faced with adversity or prolonged pressure, is an over-reliance on motivation. People start a challenging endeavor feeling enthusiastic and driven, but the moment that initial excitement wanes or the pressure intensifies, their execution efforts often grind to a halt. But here's a critical understanding for anyone serious about achieving difficult goals. Motivation is a notoriously unreliable fuel for navigating the sustained demands of high-stakes execution. Discipline and consistency in action are permanent, reliable engines. You will not always feel motivated to execute, especially when tasks are difficult, outcomes are uncertain, or you're facing criticism or setbacks. You will have days where you are tired, frustrated, doubtful, or simply bored with the grind. If you allow your emotional state to dictate your actions, you will never achieve anything truly significant or consistently perform well under pressure. The secret is to decouple your execution from your feelings. You must stop making decisions about whether to act based on how you feel and start making them based on what needs to be done according to your plan and commitments. Here's how to break free from the motivation trap and maintain consistent execution, even when the pressure is on. Commit to an execution schedule, not an emotional state. Instead of saying, "I'll work on this critical project when I feel focused and energized," say, "I will dedicate 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. every weekday to focused execution on this project, regardless of how I feel." When execution becomes a scheduled, non-negotiable activity, you remove the daily debate and make action more automatic. Implement the 2-day rule for critical actions. Never allow yourself to skip a critical, planned execution activity for 2 consecutive days or sessions. Missing 1 day due to unforeseen circumstances might happen. Missing 2 starts to build a new habit of avoidance and erodes your execution discipline. Redefine success in terms of consistent action. Instead of solely focusing on the ultimate outcome, which can sometimes feel distant and overwhelming under pressure, measure your daily success by whether you showed up and executed your planned actions. If your goal is to navigate a complex negotiation, don't just measure success by the final agreement. Measure it by whether you consistently prepared, researched, and engaged in the necessary discussions each day. When you stop relying on the fickle nature of motivation and start building your execution on the bedrock of disciplined, consistent systems and actions, you will never again have to worry about your drive failing you when you need it most. 3. How to forge unbreakable execution habits that hold up under fire. Most people fail to maintain consistent execution under pressure because their approach to building action-oriented habits is flawed. They try to force massive changes overnight, relying on sheer willpower to stick with a demanding new execution regimen. But willpower, especially when facing sustained stress, is a finite resource. It depletes rapidly. The key to making execution habits last, especially the kind that needs to withstand pressure, is to engineer them to be robust, reinforced, and as resistant to derailment as possible. Here's how to build execution habits that actually stick, even when the environment is challenging. Start with pressure-proofed microactions. If you want to build a habit of, say, promptly addressing difficult issues rather than avoiding them, don't start by trying to tackle a massive, high-conflict situation. Start by committing to addressing one small, slightly uncomfortable issue immediately each day. Make the initial habit so manageable that executing it even under mild stress feels achievable. Anchor new execution habits to existing stress response routines, or create new anchors. The easiest way to build a new habit is to link it to something you already do, or to a specific cue. For example, if your stress response is to procrastinate, create a new anchor. When I feel the urge to avoid a pressure task, cue, I will immediately take one small, predefined action on it for 5 minutes. New execution habit. Make your execution cues and processes highly visible and unavoidable. If you need to consistently follow up on critical action items, don't rely on memory. Use a highly visible tracking system, a physical board, a dedicated app with prominent reminders that you cannot ignore. The more visible and unavoidable your execution prompts are, the more likely you are to act. Track your execution streaks under pressure. There's a powerful psychological effect in maintaining a streak. Use a calendar or tracker to mark every day you successfully execute your key committed actions, especially the ones you perform despite feeling pressure or resistance. The goal is simple. Don't break the chain. Seeing your streak of consistent execution grow becomes a powerful intrinsic motivator to keep going, even when it's tough. Build in failure recovery protocols. Acknowledge that even with the best intentions, you might occasionally miss an execution step, especially under extreme pressure. Don't let this derail you. Have a pre-planned recovery protocol, e.g., if I miss my scheduled execution block, I will make it up within 24 hours, or I will do a double session the next day. This prevents one slip from becoming a complete abandonment of the habit. By making your execution habits manageable, clearly cued, tracked, and with built-in resilience, you remove much of the daily struggle associated with staying consistent and dramatically increase your ability to perform reliably under pressure. If you take nothing else from this chapter, let it be this: sustainable, high-impact execution is not about sporadic intensity. It is about relentless consistency. The individuals who achieve the most, especially in demanding fields, are not those who make one heroic effort and then coast. They are the ones who show up and execute, day in and day out, with unwavering discipline, no matter the external pressures or their internal state. They don't wait for inspiration. They don't let setbacks permanently derail them. They don't quit just because progress feels slow or the path is arduous. From this moment forward, commit to playing the long game of consistent execution. Choose one critical area where you need to improve your performance under pressure and focus on executing small, decisive actions in that area daily. Don't chase immediate, dramatic results. Chase daily, consistent execution. Because over time, those relentless small efforts will compound into an extraordinary and unshakable capacity to achieve anything you set your mind to, regardless of the storm. Ultimately, the choice is yours. Will you be like the majority, constantly starting with enthusiasm but faltering in execution when the pressure mounts, stuck in a perpetual loop of inconsistency? Or will you become one of an elite few who master the art of unwavering daily execution, build unstoppable habits, and consistently dominate challenges and achieve their goals? The answer to that question will define your future. Chapter 7. The Executor's Code. Unlocking the hidden formulas of the top 1% who thrive under duress. Have you ever observed individuals who seem to operate at a completely different caliber when the stakes are high? People who, in the face of intense pressure, chaos, or uncertainty, don't just cope but actually seem to excel? They make bold, effective decisions while others are paralyzed. They drive initiatives forward with unwavering resolve while others get bogged down. It makes you wonder, what is their secret? What mental operating system are they running that allows them to execute so powerfully when most people crumble or retreat? It's not simply about being braver or smarter. in the conventional sense. If that were the sole determinant, every individual with a high IQ or a fearless disposition would be a master executor under pressure, but clearly, that's not the case. There's something more profound at play, a distinct set of internal codes and operational frameworks that the top 1% of executors live by. The stark reality is that most people remain trapped in mediocrity when it comes to high-stakes execution because they unknowingly operate from a default script, a set of societal conditionings and limiting beliefs that actively undermine their ability to perform under pressure. They hesitate because they fear judgment. They overanalyze because they crave impossible certainty. They avoid discomfort because they haven't cultivated resilience. And as a result, they consistently underperform their potential, watching from the sidelines as others, who have cracked the executor's code, achieve remarkable things. But here's the game-changing revelation. This executor's code is not an exclusive birthright. You don't need a privileged upbringing, an elite education, or a magical anointing to access and implement these principles. What you do need is to understand how the ultra-effective think, decide, and act when the pressure is on, and then to consciously integrate these strategies into your own operational DNA. This chapter will deconstruct the core mindset shifts, decisive habits, and strategic frameworks that differentiate the top 1% of executors from everyone else. If you absorb and relentlessly apply what you're about to learn, your approach to pressure situations and your capacity for decisive action will be irrevocably transformed. You will begin to operate with a new level of clarity, courage, and effectiveness. 1. The 1% execute from a foundation of anti-fragility, not just resilience. Most people strive for resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks, to withstand pressure. And resilience is certainly valuable. However, the top 1% of executors often operate from an even more powerful paradigm, anti-fragility. Coined by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, anti-fragility is not just about resisting shocks and staying the same. It's about benefiting from shocks, stressors, and volatility, getting stronger, more capable, and more adaptive as a result of them. While the merely resilient person aims to recover from a tough execution challenge, the anti-fragile executor actively seeks out, or at least strategically leverages, pressure and uncertainty as opportunities to learn, adapt, and enhance their capabilities. They understand that true growth and peak performance in execution don't happen in a sterile, predictable environment. They happen at the edges of chaos and challenge. Think about it. The resilient executor faces a major project setback, works hard to fix it, and gets the project back on track. They return to their previous baseline. The anti-fragile executor faces the same setback, not only fixes it but dissects the failure to extract deep learnings, redesigns processes to prevent recurrence, and uses the crisis to forge stronger team cohesion and innovative solutions. The setback makes them, and their system, better and more robust for future execution. The top 1% understand that avoiding all pressure and volatility is not only impossible but also detrimental to developing peak execution capability. They cultivate a mindset that views stressors not as threats to be merely endured, but as data points and catalysts for improvement. To start operating with anti-fragility in your execution, reframe failures and setbacks. Instead of seeing them as purely negative, ask, what can I learn from this? How can this make me / us stronger or smarter for the next execution? Embrace calculated volatility. Don't always opt for the safest, most predictable path in your projects or decisions if a slightly more uncertain path offers significantly greater learning or upside. Controlled exposure to stress builds capacity. Build redundancy and optionality. Anti-fragile systems and executors have buffers and alternative plans. This allows them to not just survive unexpected disruptions but to potentially capitalize on them. If you continue to aim merely for resilience, you'll be focused on recovery. If you aim for anti-fragility, you'll be focused on leveraging every pressure point and setback to become a more formidable executor. 2. The 1% prioritize decisive imperfect action over perfect inaction. Average executors often get ensnared by the pursuit of the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect set of conditions before they commit to action. They believe that more analysis, more deliberation, and more information will de-risk the execution to a point of guaranteed success. This quest for perfection, however, frequently leads to perfect inaction. Opportunities pass, momentum stalls, and the fear of making a less than perfect move keeps them paralyzed. The top 1% of executors operate under a fundamentally different principle. Decisive, imperfect action is almost always superior to perfect inaction. They understand that in the real world, especially under pressure, conditions are rarely ideal, information is often incomplete, and waiting for perfection is a losing strategy. They embody a bias for action because they know action creates clarity. It's often only by taking the first few steps in execution that the path ahead becomes clearer, new information emerges, and assumptions can be tested.
Inaction bursts fog.
Momentum is a powerful force. Even small, imperfect actions create momentum. This momentum can be psychological, building confidence and resolve, and practical, opening new doors, revealing new data. Learning happens through doing. The fastest way to learn and adapt is by executing, observing the results, and iterating. Overanalyzing in a vacuum yields far less valuable insight. Speed is often a competitive advantage. In many high-stakes scenarios, the ability to act decisively and quickly, even if the initial action isn't flawless, can be the difference between success and failure. This doesn't mean reckless or thoughtless action. The top 1% still engage in strategic thinking and risk assessment, but they have a much lower threshold for committing to action once a reasonably sound plan is in place. They would rather make a move, learn from it, and adjust course than remain stuck at the starting gate striving for an unattainable ideal. If you want to elevate your execution to the level of the top 1%, you must consciously override the instinct to wait for perfection. Ask yourself, what is the most important action I can take right now with the information and resources I have? Even if it's not perfect, then execute that action with conviction. 3. The 1% master emotional detachment during high-stakes execution. Most people allow their emotions, fear, anxiety, excitement, frustration, to heavily influence and often derail their execution, especially when the pressure is high. Fear of failure can lead to procrastination. Anxiety about uncertainty can lead to indecisiveness. Overexcitement can lead to reckless moves. Frustration from setbacks can lead to giving up. The top 1% of executors, while certainly experiencing these emotions, have cultivated the critical skill of emotional detachment during the execution process. This doesn't mean they are emotionless robots. It means they have learned to acknowledge their feelings without letting those feelings dictate their actions or compromise their judgment when critical decisions need to be made. They achieve this through practices like focusing on process, not just outcome. While the desired outcome is important, they anchor their actions in a sound, predefined process. This provides a logical framework that can override emotional impulses. The plan says step X is next, so I do step X, regardless of my current anxiety about the overall outcome. Objective self-assessment. They strive to assess situations and their own performance as objectively as possible, separating facts from feelings. They might ask, what are the verifiable data points here? And what is my emotional interpretation of them? Premortems and contingency planning. By anticipating potential problems and emotional triggers before they occur, and planning responses, they reduce the likelihood of being emotionally hijacked in the moment of execution. Mindfulness and stress management techniques. Many high performers utilize techniques like mindfulness, controlled breathing, or visualization to maintain composure and clarity under pressure, allowing them to make more rational execution decisions. If you aspire to execute like the top 1%, you must train yourself to create a space between your emotional reactions and your actionable responses. When faced with a high-pressure execution scenario, pause, acknowledge your emotions, and then consciously shift your focus to your predetermined process, the objective facts, and the next logical action. This ability to execute with a clear head, even amidst emotional turbulence, is a hallmark of elite performers. 4. The 1% relentlessly own the execution. No excuses, no blame. In any challenging execution scenario, things will inevitably go wrong. There will be unforeseen obstacles, mistakes made, and plans that don't unfold as expected. When this happens, the average person often defaults to making excuses, blaming external circumstances, or pointing fingers at others. This diffuses responsibility and, crucially, prevents learning and effective course correction. The top 1% of executors operate with a radically different mindset. They take extreme ownership of the execution process and its outcomes. This doesn't mean they believe they can control everything, but they take full responsibility for their decisions, their actions, and their responses to unforeseen events. This own the execution mentality means no excuses. When a target is missed or a problem arises, they don't waste energy on why it couldn't be done or who else was at fault. Their first question is, what could we have done differently, and what we need to do now to fix it and move forward? Focus on solutions, not problems. While understanding the problem is important, their primary focus quickly shifts to identifying and implementing solutions. Dwelling on the problem breeds negativity and inaction. Learning from every outcome. Whether the execution is a success or a setback, they dissect it for lessons. What worked? What didn't? How can we improve our execution next time? This commitment to continuous learning is fueled by taking ownership. Empowering others through accountability. Leaders who own their execution inspire the same in their teams. When people see that responsibility is embraced, not shirked, it fosters a culture of high performance and proactive problem solving. If you consistently find yourself making excuses or blaming external factors when your execution falters, you are operating from a mindset of victimhood, not ownership. To join the ranks of the top 1%, you must consciously choose to own every aspect of your execution. This shift is profoundly empowering and is the foundation upon which all consistent, high-level performance under pressure is built. Ultimately, achieving consistent, high-impact execution, especially when the stakes are high and adversity is present, is not about possessing some magical talent or inherent fearlessness. It's about consciously adopting and relentlessly practicing the mental frameworks and operational codes of those who consistently succeed. By cultivating anti-fragility, prioritizing decisive imperfect action, mastering emotional detachment, and taking extreme ownership, you will begin to transform your capacity to not just face pressure, but to thrive within it. You will stop being a victim of circumstance and become a master of your execution. The question is no longer if you can operate at this level, but if you will commit to embodying the executor's code. Your most significant achievements await that commitment. Chapter 8. The Executor's Confidence. Building an unshakable belief in your ability to deliver under any circumstance. What if I told you that one of the most significant, yet often invisible, determinants of your ability to execute decisively under pressure isn't your skill set, your experience, or even your strategic plan, but the depth of your self-confidence? Think about it. Every time you've hesitated to take a critical action, every time you've shrunk from a high-stakes decision, every time you've allowed fear of failure to paralyze your execution, at the root of it, there was a deficit in your belief, a lack of unwavering confidence in your ability to handle the situation and its potential outcomes. Conversely, consider those individuals who seem to navigate intense pressure with an almost preternatural calm and decisiveness. They step into challenging situations, make bold calls, and drive execution forward with a conviction that can seem almost effortless. You might have wondered, how do they possess such unshakable self-assurance, especially when the chips are down? You might assume they were simply born confident, that it's some inherent trait bestowed upon a fortunate few. But that assumption is a dangerous fallacy. True executor's confidence, the kind that fuels decisive action in the face of adversity, isn't an innate gift. It's a meticulously built, hard-earned asset. And here's the stark truth. If you don't actively and intentionally cultivate this specific type of confidence, you will perpetually operate below your potential. You will be controlled by doubt, second-guess your decisions, and falter when your execution capabilities are tested most severely. You will settle for less, not because you aren't capable of more, but because, deep down, you don't possess the unshakable belief that you can deliver when it truly matters. But here's the empowering news. Executor's confidence is a skill. It can be learned, trained, and strengthened just like a muscle. And once you master its development, everything about your ability to perform under pressure changes. You start to see challenges not as threats, but as opportunities to prove your mettle. You begin to act with conviction instead of hesitation. You attract responsibility and command respect, not through arrogance, but through the quiet power of genuine self-belief in your capacity to execute. By the end of this chapter, you will understand the science and art of building this specific action-oriented confidence. You'll learn what it truly is, why most people struggle to attain it in high-pressure contexts, and precisely how you can develop an unbreakable self-belief that will transform your ability to execute decisively in every area of your life. This is the key to unlocking your full execution potential. Are you ready to build it? 1. The hidden confidence saboteurs in high-pressure execution. Before we delve into how to construct unwavering executor's confidence, we must first identify and neutralize the insidious saboteurs that quietly undermine it, often without your conscious awareness, especially when you're facing a demanding situation. These are the subtle mental habits, ingrained beliefs, and reactive behaviors that erode your self-belief precisely when you need it most. The most potent of these is tying your confidence solely to successful outcomes. If your belief in your ability to execute only inflates when things go perfectly and deflates catastrophically with every setback or imperfect result, your confidence will be a fragile, unreliable roller coaster. True executors understand that confidence must be anchored in something deeper than just the immediate win-loss record. They know that setbacks are part of any challenging execution journey, and their core belief in their ability to navigate and learn from those setbacks remains intact. Another massive confidence killer in high-pressure scenarios is excessive rumination on past failures or future anxieties. When faced with a demanding execution task, do you find your mind replaying previous mistakes in vivid detail, or catastrophizing all the potential negative outcomes of your current actions? This mental pattern actively destroys your present-moment confidence and your capacity for clear-headed action. Confident executors learn to acknowledge past lessons without dwelling on them, and to plan for future risks without being paralyzed by them. They focus their mental energy on the present action. A third, more subtle saboteur is constantly seeking external validation before acting under pressure. If you need constant reassurance from others or a guarantee of success, before you feel confident enough to make a decisive move, you are outsourcing your self-belief. In high-stakes situations, you often won't have the luxury of external validation. True executor's confidence is internally generated. It's a deep-seated belief in your own judgment and capability, independent of external applause or approval. If you've struggled to maintain confidence when the pressure mounts, it's highly likely these hidden saboteurs are at play. But the empowering news is that you can actively rewire these mental patterns. You can reclaim control over your internal narrative and build a foundation of confidence that is resilient to external pressures and internal doubts. Starts now. 2. The executor's confidence formula. Competence forged in the fires of action. Genuine, unshakable executor's confidence isn't about baseless arrogance, faking it till you make it, or puffing yourself up with affirmations. Real confidence, the kind that fuels decisive action under intense pressure, is an authentic byproduct of demonstrated competence, repeatedly proven to yourself through challenging action and successful navigation of adversity. Here's the core formula: deliberate preparation and skill mastery. Confidence in execution begins with knowing your craft. The more deeply you understand your field, the more thoroughly you prepare for specific challenges, and the more proficient you become in the core skills required for success, the more natural your confidence will be. This isn't just about theoretical knowledge. It's about practical, applicable skills honed through practice. When the pressure is on, you fall back on your deepest levels of training. Incremental exposure to pressure. Stepping outside your comfort zone. You don't build confidence for high-stakes execution by staying in your comfort zone. You build it by progressively and intentionally stepping into situations that stretch you, that involve a manageable degree of pressure or uncertainty. Each time you successfully navigate a slightly more challenging execution scenario, your brain registers a win, and your confidence in handling similar or even greater pressures grows. Avoidance breeds fear. Exposure with preparation breeds confidence. Focus on controllables, detach from uncontrollables. In any high-pressure execution, there are elements you can control: your effort, your preparation, your decisions, your responses, and elements you cannot: external market shifts, competitor actions, pure luck. Confident executors pour their energy into mastering the controllables and learn to accept and adapt to the uncontrollables. Worrying about things outside your control erodes confidence and wastes precious mental energy. Learning from setbacks, building resilience. Executors' confidence isn't shattered by mistakes or setbacks. It's often strengthened by the process of analyzing them, learning from them, and successfully adapting. Each time you overcome a significant obstacle or recover from a misstep in execution, you prove to yourself that you are resilient, resourceful, and capable of navigating adversity. This builds a deeper, more robust confidence than a string of easy wins ever could. Keeping promises to yourself, building self-trust every time you commit to an action, especially a difficult one, and follow through, you build self-trust. This self-trust is the absolute bedrock of executors' confidence. If you consistently break your commitments to yourself, e.g., I will tackle this tough task today, and then you don't, you erode your belief in your own word and your ability to execute. Conversely, a strong track record of personal follow-through creates an unshakable inner conviction. This formula isn't a quick fix. It's a continuous process. But by consistently applying these principles, you will forge a level of executors' confidence that is authentic, resilient, and profoundly empowering. 3. How to project executors' confidence and command respect under pressure. Executors' confidence isn't just an internal state. It has a powerful external manifestation. When you genuinely believe in your ability to execute effectively, especially under pressure, it radiates outward and profoundly influences how others perceive you and respond to you. People are naturally drawn to and willing to follow individuals who exude calm competence and decisive self-assurance when the stakes are high. Here's how to project authentic executors' confidence and command respect, especially in challenging situations. Speak with measured conviction. When you communicate your decisions or plans, especially under pressure, do so with clarity and conviction. Avoid hesitant language, excessive qualifiers, or an apologetic tone. Own your words. This doesn't mean being dogmatic, but it does mean conveying that you have thought things through and are committed to the chosen course of action. Maintain composed body language. Your nonverbal cues speak volumes. Stand or sit upright. Make appropriate eye contact, conveying engagement, not aggression. Use purposeful gestures and avoid nervous fidgeting. Calm, controlled body language signals internal composure and self-assurance, even if you're feeling internal stress. Listen actively, then decide decisively. Confident executors aren't afraid to listen to input and differing opinions, even under pressure. However, they also know when the time for deliberation is over and the time for a decision has arrived. They don't get bogged down in endless consensus seeking when swift, decisive action is required. Focus on solutions, not blame. In a crisis or when things go wrong, confident executors immediately shift the focus to finding solutions and moving forward, rather than dwelling on blame or negativity. This proactive, solution-oriented approach inspires confidence in others. Demonstrate grace under pressure. The ability to remain calm, rational, and respectful, even when facing intense stress, criticism, or chaos, is a hallmark of true executors' confidence. Losing your composure erodes trust and signals a lack of control. Remember, this isn't about putting on an act. It's about letting your genuinely cultivated internal confidence manifest externally through your communication and demeanor. When your inner self-belief is strong, these outward expressions will feel natural and authentic. 4. The painful truth: the world penalizes execution hesitancy and rewards decisive self-belief. The world, especially in competitive and high-stakes environments, does not reward doubt, hesitancy, or a lack of belief in one's ability to execute. If you don't project confidence in your capacity to deliver, why should anyone else, your boss, your team, your clients, your investors, place their confidence in you? Executors' confidence isn't a nice-to-have personality trait. It is a fundamental prerequisite for sustained success and impact. It determines whether you seize opportunities or let them languish, whether you lead effectively under pressure or falter, whether you achieve your most ambitious execution goals or consistently fall short. But today you have a conscious choice. You can continue to allow self-doubt and fear to undermine your execution capabilities, leading to a cycle of hesitation and missed potential. Or you can commit to the deliberate, disciplined work of building authentic, resilient executor's confidence, the kind that allows you to face any challenge, navigate any pressure, and execute your most important objectives with unwavering self-belief. You already possess the raw material within you. The only question is, will you commit to forging it into an unshakable tool for execution? Your greatest achievements depend on it. Chapter 9. The Executor's Discipline Code. Forging unstoppable focus and self-control for peak performance when it matters most. If you're engaging with this material, it's almost certain you've set significant, challenging goals for yourself. Goals that demand not just planning, but relentless, effective execution, often in the face of considerable pressure. Maybe you aim to lead a high-stakes project to success, navigate a complex organizational change, launch a game-changing venture, or achieve a personal best in a demanding field. You likely began with a potent mix of enthusiasm and a clear vision of the desired outcome. You felt that initial fire, that "I can do this" conviction. But then, as the journey of execution unfolded, something familiar probably occurred. The initial blaze of motivation dwindled. Distractions, both internal, self-doubt, fatigue, and external, competing demands, unexpected obstacles, began to chip away at your focus. Procrastination, disguised as needing more information or waiting for the right moment, crept in. You found yourself making subtle excuses, pushing critical actions to tomorrow. And before you realized it, significant time had passed, momentum was lost, and the pressure had only intensified, often without commensurate progress. Does this scenario resonate? You are far from alone. This is the insidious cycle that traps 99% of people, preventing them from consistently executing at their peak, especially when the going gets tough. They set ambitious goals, get fired up by the initial vision, and then, when the sustained, often gritty work of execution demands unwavering focus and self-control, they falter. And then they wonder why they remain stuck, why their best intentions so rarely translate into consistent, high-impact results. The unvarnished truth is this: exceptional execution, particularly under pressure, does not belong to the most motivated. It belongs to the most disciplined. Discipline is the master key that unlocks the door separating those who consistently achieve their most challenging objectives from those who spend their lives merely wishing they could. The world's most effective executors, the leaders who navigate crises with calm, the innovators who bring revolutionary ideas to fruition against all odds, the athletes who perform flawlessly when the championship is on the line, are not individuals who always feel like taking the necessary, often difficult actions. They are individuals who have trained themselves to act based on commitment and strategic necessity, regardless of their fleeting feelings or the intensity of the pressure. They don't rely on the fickle winds of motivation. They don't allow distractions to derail their core objectives. They don't let internal resistance or external adversity win. They have systematically cultivated the focus and self-control to do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, no matter what. This chapter is designed to fundamentally shift your understanding and application of discipline in the context of high-stakes execution. You will learn why most people fail to maintain the consistent focus and self-control required for success under pressure. You will discover how to rewire your brain to crave the clarity of disciplined action rather than the chaos of distraction. And you will be equipped with a system to ensure you follow through with precision and resolve, even when every fiber of your being wants to retreat or procrastinate. If you master this executor's discipline code, your ability to perform under pressure will become truly unstoppable. Let's begin the forging. 1. The motivation fallacy in high-stakes execution: why it's a recipe for failure under pressure. Most people incorrectly assume they have a discipline problem, when, in reality, they have a motivation dependency problem. They operate under the deeply flawed belief that they need to feel inspired, energized, or confident before they can effectively execute critical tasks, especially those that are daunting or carry significant consequences. They tell themselves, "I'll tackle that high-pressure presentation when I feel more prepared and less anxious. I'll make that difficult decision when I have a surge of clarity and feel more certain. I'll start that challenging project when I'm in the right mood and have more energy." And that, precisely, is why their execution so often falters when the pressure is on. Motivation, as we've touched upon, is a temporary and unreliable ally, particularly in the sustained campaign of high-stakes execution. It ebbs and flows like the tide. One day you might feel capable of moving mountains. The next, even small tasks can feel overwhelming, especially if you're tired, stressed, or facing unexpected setbacks. If your capacity to execute critical actions is contingent upon feeling inspired or ready, you are building your entire operational success on a foundation of quicksand. The truth is, individuals who consistently execute at an elite level, especially under duress, do not primarily rely on motivation. They operate on a foundation of ingrained discipline, the learned ability to do what they have committed to do, regardless of their emotional state or the level of external pressure. Think about it. A seasoned surgeon doesn't cancel a critical operation because they don't feel motivated that morning. A successful CEO doesn't defer making vital strategic decisions during a market downturn because they aren't in the mood. A champion athlete doesn't skip crucial training sessions leading up to a major competition because they feel tired or uninspired. They show up, they focus, they execute, every single time it's required. Not because they always feel like it, but because they understand that exceptional execution is a direct result of unwavering consistency and disciplined action, not fleeting emotional states. If you have been waiting for motivation to strike before you engage in the hard work of execution, especially on tasks that intimidate you, you have been playing a losing game. The real secret is to systematically remove your emotions from the decision to act. Success in execution is a habit, not a mood, and habits are built and sustained through discipline. 2. Rewiring your brain for disciplined execution. Craving clarity over chaos. Most people perceive discipline, especially the kind needed for sustained focus and self-control under pressure, as something inherently painful, restrictive, or punitive. And this very perception is why they instinctively resist it. But what if I told you that you can systematically train your brain to not just tolerate, but to actually crave the order, clarity, and effectiveness that comes from disciplined execution? What if, instead of instinctively avoiding the hard work of focused action, you could become addicted to the power it gives you? Here's the neuroscientific principle. Your brain is fundamentally wired to seek reward and avoid pain. Currently, for many, every time you procrastinate on a pressure-filled task, skip a difficult but necessary action, or indulge in a distraction, your brain delivers a small, temporary hit of dopamine, a fleeting sense of relief or pleasure. That's why it often feels momentarily good to check social media instead of tackling that complex report, or to defer that uncomfortable conversation. The problem is, your brain is rewarding you for actions that sabotage your long-term execution success. To develop unbreakable executor's discipline, you need to consciously reprogram this internal reward system. You need to start associating the pain of inaction, indecision, and chaos with negative consequences, and the pleasure of focused, disciplined execution with powerful, positive rewards, both internal and external. Here's how to begin this rewiring process. Amplify the pain of undisciplined inaction. The immediate consequence hack your brain is most responsive to immediate consequences. Right now, deferring a high-pressure task might not feel immediately catastrophic. But what if you created an immediate, tangible negative consequence for failing to execute a disciplined action? For example, if you fail to complete your most critical execution task for the day, you donate a certain amount to a cause you dislike, or you forego a planned leisure activity. This makes the pain of indiscipline more immediate and motivating. Reframe execution discomfort as a signal of growth and strength. Instead of dreading the mental strain of focused work or the discomfort of tackling a challenging task, start to consciously reframe these sensations as proof that you are operating at your edge, building capacity, and becoming stronger. Every time an execution task feels difficult, tell yourself, "This is what separates the best from the rest. This is how I forge resilience. This is me leveling up." When you link discomfort with progress, discipline transforms from a burden into a badge of honor. Celebrate the act of disciplined execution, not just the ultimate outcome. Most people only allow themselves to feel rewarded when they achieve a major final goal. But to make discipline itself addictive, you need to acknowledge and celebrate the consistent act of showing up and executing with focus and self-control, regardless of the immediate, visible results. Every time you follow through on a committed, disciplined action, especially when it was hard. Internally recognize that you just became more powerful, more capable. Build an identity around being someone who always executes with discipline. By consistently applying these mindset shifts, discipline ceases to feel like a chore imposed from the outside and starts to feel like an internal source of power, clarity, and control. And when that transformation occurs, your ability to execute under pressure becomes truly formidable. 3. The ultimate executor's discipline system, ensuring follow-through no matter what. The most disciplined individuals in the world don't rely solely on brute willpower to maintain their focus and self-control, especially during prolonged periods of high pressure. They have architected systems that make disciplined execution the path of least resistance, or at least the most clearly defined and supported path. If you want to guarantee that you follow through on your critical execution goals every single time, you need to build a personal system that minimizes decision fatigue, neutralizes distractions, and makes consistent, high-quality execution almost inevitable. Here's how to construct your own executor's discipline system. Eliminate execution decision fatigue. Every time you have to consciously decide whether or not to engage in a disciplined action, e.g., should I work on this difficult task now or later? You create an opening for excuses and procrastination. The solution: remove the decision-making process for core execution activities. Schedule your focused work blocks, your critical decision-making sessions, or your resilience-building practices at the same non-negotiable times each day or week. Make them immutable appointments with yourself. They are rules, not choices. Deploy the 5-minute execution rule to annihilate procrastination. The most difficult part of any challenging execution task is often just starting. Trick your brain by committing to engage with the task for just 5 minutes. Tell yourself, I only have to work on this high-pressure report for 5 minutes. Or, I'll just outline the first point of that difficult conversation for 5 minutes. Once you begin, the inertia is broken, momentum starts to build, and 99% of the time, you'll find yourself continuing well beyond the initial 5 minutes. Action, even minimal action, begets more action. Establish a no-negotiation policy for core disciplines. The most consistently effective executors have a set of core disciplines or execution principles they simply never violate, regardless of how they feel or what pressures they are under. Decide in advance what these are for you. For example, I never end my workday without identifying my top 1 to 3 critical execution priorities for tomorrow. I always address critical feedback within 24 hours, no matter how uncomfortable. I always complete my pre-performance mental rehearsal before any high-stakes presentation. Make these non-negotiable. Implement focus fortification and accountability triggers. It's easier to maintain discipline when your environment supports it and when you know you're accountable. Focus fortification. Design your workspace and schedule to actively repel distractions during critical execution periods, e.g., specific software blockers, noise-canceling headphones, deep work signage. Accountability triggers. If internal discipline sometimes wavers under extreme pressure, build in external accountability. This could be a mentor you report progress to, a peer group that holds each other to execution standards, or even a public commitment to a specific outcome by a certain date that puts your reputation on the line. If you systematically implement these elements, you will no longer have to constantly battle yourself to be disciplined. Disciplined execution will start to become your default operational mode. At the end of the day, your success in any high-stakes endeavor will not be determined by the fleeting intensity of your motivation or the brilliance of your initial plan. It will be determined by the unwavering consistency of your disciplined execution. If you are willing to do what others won't, to show up, focus, and act with self-control every single day, especially when it's hard and the pressure is on, you will achieve results and a level of performance that 99% of people will only ever dream of. The question is no longer about your potential. It's about your commitment. Will you commit to forging the executor's discipline code within yourself? Or will you remain trapped in the frustrating cycle of good intentions and inconsistent execution? Your future and the achievement of your most ambitious goals depends entirely on your choice. Chapter 10. The Executor's Velocity. How to take decisive, high-impact action at speed and achieve in months what others take years to do. You identify critical goals. You develop strategic plans. You spend considerable time thinking about what you want to achieve and how you might get there. But let me ask you, with brutal honesty, how much of what you meticulously planned actually gets executed with the urgency and decisiveness required to make rapid, significant progress, especially when the clock is ticking or the pressure is mounting? How much closer are you today to achieving your most ambitious objectives than you were 6 months ago, or even a year ago? If the answer is not nearly as close as I'd like, or progress has been painfully slow, there's a primary culprit. It's not a lack of intelligence. It's not a deficiency in your desire for success. It's almost certainly because you are not executing with the necessary velocity and decisiveness required to win in today's fast-paced, high-stakes environments. The biggest self-deception most people engage in is believing they are working hard or being productive, when, in reality, if you scrutinize their actual daily activities, they are often caught in a whirlwind of thinking about executing, making endless lists, consuming more information, attending countless meetings, or getting lost in peripheral research, all while studiously avoiding the core, high-impact, decisive actions that actually create tangible results and forward momentum. Consider the individuals and teams who achieve astonishing levels of success at breathtaking speed. The entrepreneurs who scale disruptive businesses from zero to millions in record time, the special operations units that execute complex missions flawlessly under extreme duress, the scientific teams that achieve breakthroughs against the clock. Do you genuinely believe they possess some mystical advantage or secret resource unavailable to others? The unvarnished truth is, they have mastered the art and science of relentless, high-velocity execution. They don't waste precious time on non-essential activities. They don't get bogged down in analysis paralysis when a decision point arrives. They don't wait for perfect conditions or absolute certainty. They take massive, focused, decisive action, consistently and rapidly, learning and iterating as they go, until they achieve their objective. This chapter is engineered to fundamentally transform your approach to action itself. If you've been trapped in a cycle of procrastination when faced with pressure, if you've been perpetually busy, but not genuinely productive on your most critical execution points, if you've been putting in the hours but seeing minimal real progress, then what you desperately need isn't more knowledge or a better plan. What you need is a system for high-velocity, decisive execution, a methodology for taking such an insane level of focused, impactful action so consistently that achieving your goals rapidly becomes not just possible but inevitable. By the time you finish reading this chapter, you will possess the blueprint. Now let's ignite your execution engine. 1. The 3 deadly execution traps that annihilate velocity and keep you stagnant under pressure. Most people fail to execute with speed and decisiveness, especially when facing challenging circumstances, because they unknowingly fall into one or more of 3 deadly traps. These traps cleverly masquerade as productive work, lulling you into a false sense of progress, while in reality, they are insidiously consuming your time, energy, and momentum, keeping you firmly stuck. Trap 1. The pre-execution perfection loop, aka analysis paralysis on steroids. You tell yourself that before you can truly commit to decisive action, especially on something high stakes, you need to refine the plan further, gather more data, consider every conceivable contingency, or polish the presentation to an impossible sheen. While due diligence is important, this trap sucks you into an endless cycle of preparation and refinement, where the readiness bar is perpetually raised. You're waiting for the mythical perfect moment or flawless plan to execute, but that moment never arrives. The only real learning and progress in execution happen through doing, not through endlessly preparing to do. Stop over-preparing. Start executing. Trap 2. The comfort zone stagnation, aka fear of high-impact action. You convince yourself that it's safer or more prudent to focus on familiar, low-risk, low-impact tasks, especially when the pressure is on. You tackle the easy items on your list, respond to non-urgent emails, or engage in busy work that feels productive but doesn't actually move the needle on your most critical execution objectives. This is often a subconscious avoidance mechanism driven by fear of failure, fear of judgment, or discomfort with the ambiguity inherent in high-impact actions. True velocity in execution comes from courageously and consistently tackling the most important and often most challenging tasks first. Stop majoring in minor things. Attack the critical few. Trap 3. The reactive firefighting addiction, aka losing control of your execution agenda. You tell yourself you'll get to your strategic execution priorities after you deal with the latest urgent crisis, the newest incoming demand, or the loudest complaint. Your day becomes a series of reactions to external stimuli, rather than a proactive pursuit of your core objectives. Before you know it, your entire execution bandwidth has been consumed by fighting fires, many of which could have been prevented with more proactive, disciplined execution, leaving no time or energy for the strategic actions that drive real progress. Your execution agenda is being dictated by others, not by you. Stop being a reactor. Become a proactive executor. If you recognize your own patterns in any of these traps, don't despair. You are not alone. But from this moment forward, you no longer have the excuse of ignorance. Awareness is the first critical step to liberation. Now, it's time to break free and build a system for unstoppable execution velocity. 2. The high-velocity execution system, taking decisive, massive action every single day, especially under pressure. The world's highest achievers, those who seem to accomplish an extraordinary amount in compressed timeframes, don't wait for inspiration or rely on sporadic bursts of willpower to drive their execution. They operate within a structured system that guarantees decisive, high-impact action, consistently and at speed, no matter the prevailing conditions. If you want to operate at peak execution productivity, integrate the following steps into your daily operational rhythm, and you will be astounded by your increased velocity and impact. Step 1. Ruthless prioritization for impact, the critical few execution focus. Not all actions are created equal, especially when aiming for rapid, high-impact results. The secret to execution velocity isn't about doing more things. It's about doing the right things with ferocious, unwavering focus. Most people squander 80% of their time and energy on tasks that yield only 20% of their desired results, the Pareto principle. Instead, become a master of identifying the vital 20% of actions that will generate 80% of the impact towards your most critical execution goals. Eliminate, delegate, or radically minimize everything else. Every morning, ask yourself with brutal honesty, if I could only execute on one thing today that would create the most significant momentum towards my primary objective, what would it be? Then, attack that one thing with obsessive, single-minded focus before anything else. Step 2. The no 0 days rule for sustained execution momentum. Momentum is the lifeblood of high-velocity execution. If you allow yourself to completely stall, even for a day on a critical execution path, it becomes exponentially harder to regain speed and impetus. The solution: never let a day pass without taking at least one tangible, decisive action towards your primary execution goal. Even if you're under immense pressure, feeling overwhelmed, or facing setbacks, commit to making some measurable forward progress. Even a 10-minute focused action is infinitely better than zero action. Small, consistent daily advances compound into massive long-term velocity. Step 3. Time-blocked execution sprints. 4 deep, undistracted action. Most people fail to execute with speed because they rely on a reactive to-do list approach rather than a proactive scheduled approach. High-velocity executors don't find time for their critical execution tasks. They make time, and they protect it fiercely. Employ time blocking for your most important execution activities. Schedule specific, dedicated execution sprints, e.g., 60 to 90-minute blocks, into your day for deep, focused work on your highest priority items. Treat these blocks as inviolable appointments. During these sprints, eliminate all distractions. No phone, no email, no social media, no interruptions. If you don't schedule and fiercely protect your execution time, it will invariably be stolen by less important demands. Step 4. The 2-minute activation rule to obliterate execution inertia. Whenever you feel internal resistance, procrastination, or overwhelm creeping in before tackling a challenging but necessary execution task, deploy the 2-minute activation rule. Tell yourself, I only have to work on this for 2 minutes. Just start. Begin writing that difficult email, make the first call, open the complex spreadsheet. Take the first small step on that daunting project. The psychological barrier to starting is often the biggest hurdle. Once you've overcome that initial inertia by committing to just 2 minutes 99% of the time, you'll find the momentum to continue for much longer. Action itself is the greatest antidote to procrastination and the primary fuel for execution velocity. Step 5. The win the morning, dominate the day execution ritual. How you start your day has a disproportionate impact on your execution effectiveness for the rest of the day, especially when you anticipate facing pressure. Instead of immediately diving into reactive mode by checking your phone or email, consciously design your first 60 to 90 minutes for proactive execution readiness. This might include physical activation, a short workout, stretching, or a brisk walk to energize your body and mind. Mental priming, reviewing your top critical execution priorities for the day, visualizing successful outcomes, or engaging in a brief mindfulness practice to center your focus. Attacking your number one priority first. Dedicate your first focused work block of the day to your single most important execution task, before the day's distractions and demands can derail you. Start your day with decisive, focused action, and that momentum will propel you through the rest of your execution challenges. 3. How to maintain execution velocity when you hit a wall or want to quit under pressure. There will inevitably be days when you feel like you've hit a brick wall. Days when your motivation is non-existent, progress seems impossible, setbacks are demoralizing, and the urge to quit or significantly slow down your execution pace feels overwhelming, especially if the pressure is relentless. This is the precise moment when most people falter and lose velocity. But the difference between those who achieve extraordinary results at speed and those who don't is this: winners execute with tenacity and adapt their approach, even when they want to quit. How do they do this? Acknowledge, don't dwell. Acknowledge the frustration, the fatigue, the desire to stop. Don't suppress it, but also don't let it become your operating narrative. Lean on your system, not your feelings. On the hardest days, your pre-established execution system, ruthless prioritization, time blocking, no 0 days rule, becomes your lifeline. Don't negotiate with your system based on how you feel. Just execute the next step in the process. Shorten your focus, maintain action. If the overall goal feels too daunting, shorten your focus to the very next small, achievable execution step. I can't think about finishing the whole project today, but I can complete this one subtask in the next hour. Keep moving even if the steps are smaller. Reconnect with your why. Remind yourself why this execution is critically important. What's at stake? What's the ultimate vision? A powerful why can refuel your resolve when your how feels challenging. Seek strategic recovery, not complete stoppage. Sometimes a brief, strategic pause to rest, reflect, or seek advice is necessary. But distinguish this from simply quitting or losing all momentum. The goal is to quickly get back into effective execution mode. Every time you push through a point of significant resistance and maintain your execution velocity or quickly regain it, you are not just making progress on your current goal. You are forging a deeper level GOF executor's resilience and rewiring your brain to understand that you are the type of person who delivers with speed and tenacity no matter what. And once that identity is deeply ingrained, your capacity for high-velocity execution becomes virtually limitless. You now possess the core components of the high-velocity execution system. You understand how to cut through the traps that ensnare most people, how to ruthlessly prioritize for impact, and how to take decisive, massive action on a daily basis, especially when the pressure is on. But, as with all powerful knowledge, possessing it is not enough. Your success, your speed, your ability to achieve in months what others take years to do, will not come from what you've just read. It will come entirely from what you do next. The critical question remains: will you commit to implementing these principles with unwavering discipline and urgency, starting today? Or will you allow this knowledge to become just another interesting idea while you remain stuck in the slow lane of execution? The choice, as always, is yours. But remember, your future, and the speed at which you achieve it, is waiting for your decisive action. Chapter 11. The Executor's Fortress. Building bulletproof mental toughness to guarantee decisive action in the face of extreme adversity. Let's engage in a moment of unvarnished, brutal honesty. The primary reason most individuals fail to execute consistently and effectively, especially when confronted with intense pressure, significant setbacks, or overwhelming adversity, isn't a deficiency in their skills, a lack of resources, or a shortage of opportunities. It is, quite simply, because they are mentally weak. The instant the execution becomes genuinely hard, when the path is fraught with obstacles, when the fear of failure is palpable, they crumble. When they encounter significant resistance, they retreat. When they don't see immediate, positive results from their actions, they become disheartened, lose conviction, and abandon the effort. And that, precisely, is why they remain mired in a cycle of unfulfilled potential year after year, ambitious goal after ambitious goal, execution failure after execution failure. Look around you with open eyes. The vast majority of people are not living lives of impactful execution and realized ambition. They are settling for less than they are capable of. They are struggling not necessarily due to external limitations, but due to internal fragility. They are experts at articulating why their execution plans didn't succeed, blaming circumstances, lack of support, or unfair conditions. But here's the unassailable truth. Every single individual you admire for their ability to achieve extraordinary things under immense pressure, the leaders who navigate profound crises, the entrepreneurs who build empires from rubble, the athletes who snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, has faced crushing hardships, soul-testing setbacks, and moments of profound pain and doubt. The singular difference? They did not break. They did not allow their emotions to dictate their actions. They did not permit fear to paralyze their decisiveness. They did not let failure define their capacity for future execution. If you aspire to execute at an elite level, if you are determined to achieve objectives that 99% of people will only ever dream of, you must forge an unbreakable mental fortress. You need to cultivate a degree of mental toughness so profound, so resilient, that no external pressure, no internal doubt, no unforeseen catastrophe can shatter your resolve or derail your capacity for decisive action. Because here's the stark reality of high-stakes execution. The world does not care about your feelings, your fears, or your excuses. It only and exclusively rewards results delivered through effective action. This chapter is your blueprint for developing that bulletproof mental resilience. You will learn how to systematically train your mind to not just withstand, but to thrive under pressure. You will discover how to eliminate crippling self-doubt and how to maintain unwavering focus and decisive action even when you are pushed to your absolute limits. By the time you finish reading, you will possess the tools to become an unstoppable executor, but only if you commit to the rigorous application of these principles. So, let's begin construction. 1. The uncomfortable truth about mental toughness in execution and why most people deliberately avoid building it. Mental toughness, the kind that fuels relentless execution in the face of extreme adversity, isn't some magical trait you're born with. It is forged. It is built deliberately and often painfully through consistent exposure to and successful navigation of difficulty. But most people never develop it because they are deeply, often unconsciously, ensnared in a mindset that prioritizes comfort, avoids genuine challenge, and readily embraces excuses for inaction. They make 3 critical, often fatal, mistakes in their approach to execution that systematically destroy their potential for mental toughness before they even truly begin. Mistake 1. They actively flee from hardship instead of strategically embracing it as a training ground. The average person craves ease in execution. They want straightforward paths, guaranteed positive outcomes, and immediate rewards. But the unyielding truth of any significant endeavor is this: nothing truly great is ever achieved without struggle. Meaningful growth in your execution capabilities only, and always, happens through confronting and overcoming pain, discomfort, and resistance. The mentally toughest executors aren't those who've had the easiest journeys. They are those who have willingly walked through fire, faced down their demons, and kept executing. If you consistently avoid hardship in your tasks and decisions, you will remain perpetually weak and fragile under pressure. The secret to building an executor's mental fortress? Learn to seek out or at least strategically engage with discomfort. Run towards the challenging execution tasks. Train yourself to find a perverse satisfaction in the struggle, because that is precisely where your real power is forged. Mistake 2. They allow their fleeting feelings to dictate their critical actions. Most people only take significant or difficult actions when they feel like it, when they feel motivated, confident, or inspired. If they're feeling tired, they defer crucial tasks. If they're feeling unmotivated, they procrastinate on important decisions. If an execution step feels uncomfortable or intimidating, they avoid it. But the harsh reality of high-stakes execution is that your feelings are largely irrelevant to what needs to be done. Success doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're stressed. It doesn't care if you're scared. The only thing that matters is what you do despite those feelings. Mentally tough executors have mastered the art of decoupling their actions from their emotions. Mistake 3. They crumble under pressure instead of rising to meet the challenge. When the execution plan goes awry, when unexpected obstacles emerge, or when the pressure becomes intense, the mentally weak complain. They make excuses. They blame external circumstances or other people. The mentally tough, however, take radical ownership. They don't waste precious time or energy feeling sorry for themselves or seeking sympathy. They view every challenge, every pressure point, every setback not as a personal affront, but as a test of their resolve and capability. And they pass that test by showing up, adapting, and continuing to execute with unwavering focus no matter what. If you recognize these patterns in your own responses to execution challenges, it is time for a fundamental shift. Because mental toughness isn't merely about enduring hardship. It's about transforming yourself into the kind of individual who not only withstands pressure, but actually uses it as fuel to execute with even greater precision and power. 2. How to architect a mindset that cannot be broken by execution adversity. Mental toughness is akin to a fortress wall. The more systematically you reinforce it with strong materials and sound engineering, the more impervious it becomes to assault. If you desire to build an unbreakable mind for high-stakes execution, you must consciously cultivate the habits, perspectives, and core beliefs that enable you to remain steadfast and effective, regardless of the storms you face. Step 1. Train yourself to process execution pain without complaint or capitulation. Pain, whether it's the mental anguish of a tough decision, the emotional sting of criticism, the physical exhaustion of a demanding project, or the frustration of a setback, is an inevitable component of any significant execution journey. How you respond to that pain is a choice, and it's a choice that defines your mental toughness. Weak individuals complain, whine, seek pity, and ultimately, use pain as an excuse to stop executing. Tough executors, however, learn to embrace pain as an integral part of the process. They understand it's the price of growth and achievement. The next time you encounter significant discomfort during an execution phase, consciously train yourself to lean into it, to analyze it, to learn from it, instead of instinctively running away or shutting down. See it as a signal that you are pushing your limits, which is precisely where breakthroughs happen. Step 2. Seize control of your internal dialogue, or it will control your execution. Your mind is the most powerful weapon in your execution arsenal, but if left untamed, it can also become your greatest saboteur. The thoughts you permit to dominate your consciousness directly determine your actions, your confidence, your resilience, and ultimately your success or failure in execution. If you consistently feed yourself a narrative of, "I can't do this," "I'm not good enough for this pressure," "This is too hard," "I'm going to fail," you are literally programming yourself for execution failure. The solution: take absolute, ruthless control of your internal dialogue. When a negative, disempowering thought about your ability to execute enters your mind, immediately challenge it and replace it with a powerful, affirming counterstatement. Asterisk instead of, "This pressure is overwhelming." Try, "I thrive under pressure. This is where I perform my best." Asterisk instead of, "I might fail at this execution." Try, "No matter what obstacles arise, I will find a way to succeed or learn powerfully from the attempt." Asterisk instead of, "I don't quit when it's hard." Internalize, "Quitting is never an option for me. I am relentless." Rewire your brain to expect successful execution, to see yourself as capable of handling any adversity, and your actions will begin to align with that dominant belief. Step 3. Deliberately expose yourself to controlled execution discomfort, the pressure inoculation principle. If you consistently operate within your execution comfort zone, you will remain perpetually fragile when faced with real, unpredictable pressure. The only way to become mentally strong and resilient for high-stakes execution is to intentionally and regularly expose yourself to controlled doses of difficulty and discomfort. Train yourself to do hard things as a matter of routine, even when you don't have to. Take on challenging tasks at work that others avoid. Set ambitious execution deadlines for yourself and commit to meeting them. Practice making decisions with incomplete information under simulated time pressure. Engage in physical or mental disciplines that push your endurance, e.g., intense workouts, complex problem solving. Every time you willingly confront and overcome a self-imposed execution challenge, you are building mental armor. You are inoculating yourself against the paralyzing effects of future, larger pressures. Step 4. Forge an unshakable executor identity. The most mentally tough individuals in the world don't just act tough when executing under pressure. They deeply believe they are tough, resourceful, and capable of navigating any storm. They don't just take decisive action. They see themselves as warriors, as problem solvers, as individuals who never back down from a necessary execution, no matter how daunting. If you want to develop profound mental toughness for execution, you must consciously cultivate an identity that aligns with that state. Tell yourself and reinforce through your actions, every single day, I am someone who executes with precision and resolve, especially under pressure. I am relentless in my pursuit of critical objectives. I thrive on challenges because they make me stronger. Setbacks are merely feedback. I adjust and keep executing. When your actions consistently reinforce this chosen identity, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your mental toughness becomes not just a tactic, but an integral part of who you are as an executor. 3. How to maintain execution strength when life delivers a crushing blow. At some point in your journey of high-stakes execution, life will test you severely. You will face unexpected crises, devastating setbacks, profound disappointments, or betrayals that shake you to your core. In these moments, most people break. Their resolve shatters, their execution capabilities evaporate, and they succumb to despair or paralysis. But you will not, because now you understand the fundamental truths of mental toughness. Adversity is an inevitable part of any meaningful execution journey. It's not a sign that you're on the wrong path, but often a signal that you're tackling something worthwhile. Quitting is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. The pain of the current crisis will eventually pass, but the regret of abandoning your execution will linger. You possess inner reserves of strength you haven't yet tapped. The human spirit is incredibly resilient, but that resilience is only revealed when it is truly tested. When things get overwhelmingly hard, when you feel like you've been punched in the gut and your ability to execute is hanging by a thread, acknowledge the pain, but don't dwell in it. Allow yourself to feel the shock, the disappointment, the fear, but set a strict time limit on wallowing. Reconnect with your deepest why. Why is this execution so critical? What larger purpose does it serve? A powerful why can provide the fuel to keep going when all other motivation is gone. Focus on the very next smallest executable step. Don't try to solve the entire crisis at once. Identify the single, smallest, most manageable positive action you can take right now to move forward, even an inch. Then take it. Seek support, but retain ownership. Lean on trusted mentors, colleagues, or friends for perspective and encouragement, but never abdicate your ultimate responsibility for driving the execution forward. Remember past triumphs over adversity. You've faced challenges before and survived, even thrived. Draw strength from those past experiences. There are fundamentally two types of people in this world when it comes to execution under extreme pressure. The first group allows fear, pain, and struggle to break their will. They make excuses. They give up. They settle for a fraction of what they are capable of achieving. These are the individuals who spend their lives looking back with regret, haunted by the ghosts of unexecuted ambitions. The second group, they refuse to break. They refuse to make excuses. They refuse to let failure or adversity define them. They take radical ownership of their execution journey. They cultivate unshakable mental resilience. And they ultimately succeed, not because the path was easy, but because their will to execute was stronger than any obstacle. The profound question now is, which one are you going to be? Mental toughness for execution is not a gift. It is a choice, reinforced by daily discipline. Make the right one. Your most critical achievements depend on it. Chapter 12. The Relentless Pursuit of Execution Mastery. How to become the undisputed best at delivering results under pressure in your field. Most people navigate their professional lives, and indeed many of their personal endeavors, operating at a level of good enough execution. They learn the basics, they perform adequately, but they never truly commit to mastering the art and science of delivering exceptional results consistently, especially when the stakes are high or the conditions are adverse. They dabble in new techniques, they might show flashes of brilliance, but then they lose focus, get distracted by the next shiny object, or settle back into comfortable mediocrity. They never go deep. They never fully commit to the rigorous, often uncomfortable process of true execution mastery. And that, precisely, is why they never truly stand out. They become competent, perhaps even reliable, but ultimately, they blend into the background noise, another capable but ultimately forgettable contributor in a vast ocean of adequacy. Now, contrast that with the individuals who genuinely own their industries, who are the undisputed titans at the top of their game. Think of the legendary CEOs who repeatedly execute flawless turnarounds, the special forces operators who execute missions with impossible precision under unimaginable pressure, the world-class negotiators who consistently secure optimal outcomes in high-stakes deals. What is the common denominator that electrifies their performance? It is their relentless, obsessive pursuit of execution mastery. They don't just participate in their chosen field. They strive to dominate it through superior execution. They don't just learn the fundamental skills and then coast. They delve deeper, refine further, and push the boundaries of their capabilities with an intensity that most people will never comprehend. They commit to a lifelong journey of excellence in execution, understanding that good enough is the enemy of great, especially when the pressure is on. If you harbor the ambition to be truly successful, to be recognized not just as competent but as exceptional in your ability to deliver results under pressure, you must make a pivotal decision today. Are you content with adequate execution, or are you prepared to embark on the demanding path to mastery? Because the unvarnished truth is this: mastery in execution is a conscious, deliberate choice. It's not primarily about innate talent. It's not about a lucky break. It is about whether you possess the unwavering will, the ferocious discipline, and the profound commitment to put in the extraordinary level of focused effort required to rise to the absolute pinnacle of your craft. This chapter is your unsparing roadmap. If you've ever felt that you haven't reached your full potential as an executor, if you know you're capable of performing at a much higher level under pressure but haven't quite figured out how, this is your answer. By the end of this chapter, you will possess a clear, actionable, step-by-step framework for becoming world-class in your ability to execute whatever your chosen domain. But be warned, this path demands total commitment. Mastery in execution isn't for the faint of heart or the easily distracted. It is for the obsessed, the relentless, the individuals who are willing to pay the price for unparalleled excellence. 1. The brutal truth about execution mastery, and why 99% will never achieve it under pressure. The fundamental reason why most people never achieve true mastery in their ability to execute, especially in high-pressure situations, is because the path to mastery is inherently, profoundly, and relentlessly uncomfortable. It is not glamorous. It is not consistently exciting. It is often tedious, repetitive, frustrating work that demands years, even decades, of intense, unwavering focus and a willingness to constantly push beyond your current limits. In a world increasingly addicted to instant gratification, easy wins, and superficial achievements, very few individuals possess the grit, the patience, and the sheer tenacity to endure that level of sustained, deep commitment required for execution mastery. Most people want the rewards of being a master executor, the recognition, the impact, the financial success, but they are unwilling to embrace the often unglamorous, solitary, and brutally demanding process of getting there. They want the applause, but they won't put in the thousands of hours of deliberate practice when no one is watching. They desire the confidence that comes with mastery, but they shrink from the repeated exposure to failure and constructive criticism that is essential for honing their skills under pressure. And that is precisely why they never become great. That is why they falter when the stakes are highest. Here's the stark, uncomfortable truth. You are not entitled to execution mastery. You must earn it, minute by minute, day by day, through relentless, focused effort and an unshakable commitment to improvement. If you are not willing to invest significantly more dedicated effort into honing your execution capabilities than 99% of your peers, then you will, by definition, never be better than them. You will remain one of them, competent, perhaps, but ultimately mediocre and forgettable when it comes to delivering under truly challenging conditions. Achieving mastery in execution demands a complete and radical shift in how you approach your work and your personal development. Instead of chasing quick, superficial wins, you must commit to playing the long game of deep skill acquisition. Instead of relying on fleeting motivation, you must forge an iron will of discipline. Instead of expecting overnight breakthroughs, you must learn to fall in love with the incremental process of daily refinement. The only path to true mastery in any domain of execution is to dedicate yourself to it with an intensity, a focus, and a persistence that most people would label as insane. And if that prospect daunts you, then perhaps mastery isn't your true ambition. Because mastery is not for everyone. It is reserved exclusively for the rare few who are willing to do whatever it takes, for as long as it takes, to become the absolute best. 2. The Execution Mastery Framework, your blueprint for becoming unrivaled in delivering under pressure. If you are genuinely serious about becoming a world-class executor in your field, you cannot rely on haphazard effort or sporadic bursts of brilliance. You need a clear, structured, and proven strategy for systematically developing your skills, sharpening your judgment, and pushing your performance capabilities far beyond the levels where most people plateau and stop. Step 1. Define your execution arena with laser focus and go all in. The first critical mistake most aspiring masters make is attempting to become exceptional at too many things simultaneously. They dilute their energy, scatter their focus, and bounce from one area of interest to another, never achieving true depth or dominance in any single one. But history teaches us that the greatest performers, the true masters of execution, almost invariably obsess over one core domain for years, even decades. Identify your core arena. What is the specific field, skill set, or type of high-stakes execution where you are determined to achieve unparalleled mastery? Be precise. Business leadership is too broad. Leading successful turnarounds in mid-sized tech companies under intense market pressure is more focused. Commit with unwavering resolve. Once you've defined your arena, you must make a profound, almost sacred commitment to mastering it, no matter the obstacles or the timeline. Eliminate competing distractions. You simply do not have the bandwidth for activities, hobbies, or even secondary professional pursuits that do not directly contribute to or support your journey towards mastery in your chosen execution arena. Every ounce of your discretionary effort and focus must be channeled. Step 2. Master the absolute fundamentals of execution, then innovate beyond them. Many people fail on the path to mastery because they try to run before they can walk. They chase advanced techniques, complex strategies, or flashy innovations before they have achieved an unconscious and almost cellular competence in the absolute fundamentals of execution within their domain. But every world-class executor, whether in surgery, military strategy, financial trading, or artistic creation, possesses a deep, almost reverent obsession with the basics. Drill the fundamentals relentlessly. Before you attempt to innovate, before you try to get creative, before you seek to impose your unique style, you must engage in endless, meticulous repetition of the core skills and processes. This means thousands of hours of deliberate practice, breaking down the smallest details of execution, and refining them with obsessive attention until they become second nature, executable even under extreme duress. Push beyond the established boundaries. True mastery, however, does not end with merely replicating the fundamentals flawlessly. Once you have built that unshakable foundation, you must then study the current masters in your field, analyze their techniques, understand their decision-making frameworks under pressure, and then critically find ways to surpass them. The top 1% don't just copy. They innovate, they refine, they push the entire field forward through their superior execution. Step 3. Engineer an insane execution training regimen and adhere to it with fanatical discipline. You cannot stumble into execution mastery. It must be systematically engineered through a rigorous, daily training and practice system designed to constantly challenge your current capabilities and force improvement. Deliberate practice on weaknesses. Identify the specific aspects of your execution where you are currently weakest, especially under pressure, e.g., decision-making speed, communication clarity in a crisis, maintaining composure during setbacks. Then, design specific exercises and scenarios to target and aggressively improve these areas until they become strengths. Extreme repetition for automaticity. The best executors can perform complex actions almost automatically, without conscious thought, even when chaos is erupting around them. This level of automaticity is only achieved through thousands upon thousands of correct repetitions of key skills and procedures. Brutal, unflinching feedback loops. Actively seek out honest, critical feedback on your execution performance from mentors, trusted peers, or even by meticulously analyzing your own efforts, e.g., recording and reviewing your performance in simulated high-pressure scenarios. You must be willing to confront your flaws and weaknesses head-on and fix them with ruthless efficiency. Execution mastery is not primarily a function of innate talent. It is a direct result of showing up every single day and putting in the focused, uncomfortable, and often monotonous work that most people are simply unwilling to do. Step 4. Cultivate relentless self-discipline and an unending commitment to improvement. The final and perhaps most crucial key to achieving and maintaining execution mastery is to never, ever become complacent. Most people, even those who achieve a degree of success, eventually stop actively pushing to improve once they reach a certain level of competence or comfort. They get complacent, they stop challenging themselves, they rely on past achievements, and that is precisely when they begin to lose their edge and their mastery starts to erode. If you truly aspire to dominate your field through superior execution, you must adopt a lifelong, insatiable mindset of continuous improvement. Daily learning and reflection. Every day, ask yourself, what did I learn today about effective execution that I didn't know yesterday? What specific aspect of my execution did I deliberately work on improving? How can I push myself beyond my current limits tomorrow? Stay a student of the game. The greatest masters in any field never stop learning, never stop training, never stop refining their skills and adapting to new challenges. They approach every day, every execution opportunity, with the humility and hunger of a novice, even when they are universally recognized as experts. The path to execution mastery is not for the timid, the lazy, or the easily satisfied. It is a brutal, relentless, obsessive journey that will demand more from you than you can currently imagine. And that is precisely why most people will never undertake it, and why those who do will stand alone at the pinnacle of their fields. But you are not most people. If you have resonated with the principles in this book, if you have felt that inner stirring of ambition to be truly exceptional in your ability to deliver results under pressure, then you already know that you are capable of more. You know that you were not destined for mediocrity. You know that deep within you lies the potential to become a true master of execution. The only question that remains is, are you willing to pay the price? Most will not. They will settle. They will make excuses. They will quit when the path becomes arduous. They will allow the comfort of good enough to extinguish the fire of greatness. But you will not, because you refuse to be average. You refuse to be forgotten. Execution mastery is waiting for you. Now go earn it, one relentless, disciplined, high-pressure action at a time. Chapter 13. The Executor's 1% Edge. How small, daily improvements in decisive action forge unstoppable momentum under pressure. What if I told you that the entire conventional wisdom about achieving breakthrough success in high-stakes execution, the idea that it requires massive, dramatic, overnight transformations, is fundamentally flawed? What if the individuals who consistently demonstrate superhuman levels of performance under pressure The top 1% who deliver extraordinary results in business, crisis management, competitive sports, and creative innovation don't achieve their dominance through singular, earth-shattering leaps of capability. What if the most profound transformations in your ability to execute, the most mind-blowing achievements under duress, and the seemingly godlike skills of clutch performers are not the product of sudden epiphanies or once-in-a-lifetime bursts of brilliance, but are instead forged by something far more subtle, yet infinitely more powerful? Most people are conditioned to believe that significant improvement in execution, especially the kind that holds up under intense pressure, demands massive, concentrated action. They think they need to overhaul their entire approach, dedicate Herculean effort in short bursts, or somehow work harder and more intensely than everyone else all at once. And while focused effort is undeniably crucial, it's not the primary mechanism by which the true masters of execution become and remain so formidable. The truth is far more nuanced, so understated in fact, that most people overlook its profound power entirely. The real secret to building an unshakable capacity for high-impact execution under pressure lies in what I call the executor's 1% edge. The principle is deceptively simple. If you commit to improving your ability to take decisive, effective action by just 1% every single day, one tiny refinement in your decision-making process, one small enhancement to your focus under stress, one marginal improvement in your follow-through, the cumulative results over time will be exponential and game-changing. That minuscule effort, that slight push beyond yesterday's capability, that marginal gain in your execution discipline, it compounds. It builds upon itself day after painstaking day. And before you realize it, you are operating at a level of execution proficiency and resilience under pressure that is light years ahead of everyone else who is still waiting for that big breakthrough or that perfect moment to transform. But here's the critical problem. Most people never consistently apply this 1% rule to their execution capabilities. They seek shortcuts. They crave immediate, dramatic results. They become impatient when they don't see instant improvements in their ability to handle pressure. They might try a new technique for a few days, perceive no major shift, and then abandon it, declaring it ineffective. And that is precisely why they fail to build sustainable, high-level execution skills. Because true mastery in delivering results under pressure isn't about what you do once in a grand gesture. It's about the small, consistent, incremental improvements you make to your core execution processes every single day, without fail, especially when no one is watching and the pressure isn't yet acute. By the end of this chapter, you will possess a precise understanding of how to implement the executor's 1% edge in your own life and work. You will have a clear, step-by-step methodology for using this principle to master any execution-related skill, build an insane level of discipline for acting under pressure, and create an unstoppable momentum that will allow you to achieve your most ambitious goals, regardless of the adversity you face. If you commit to this with unwavering diligence, your capacity to execute will never be the same. 1. Why small, daily refinements in execution are more powerful than sporadic, heroic efforts under pressure. Most people approach the challenge of improving their execution, especially their performance in high-pressure situations, with a too big, too fast, too short-term mindset. They believe that significant improvement requires extreme, unsustainable bursts of action. They think they need to, for instance, suddenly work 18-hour days to catch up on a failing project, or completely overhaul their entire decision-making style overnight when faced with a crisis. But this all-or-nothing approach to execution improvement is almost always unsustainable and rarely leads to lasting change. Look at the common pattern of individuals facing a high-stakes presentation. They might procrastinate, then pull an all-nighter of frantic preparation, fueled by stress and caffeine. They might even deliver an adequate performance. But have they fundamentally improved their underlying capability to prepare and deliver effectively under pressure on a consistent basis? Rarely. They relied on a massive, unsustainable burst of effort, not on a systematically built skill. Now, compare that to someone who commits to the 1% edge in improving their presentation execution. Day 1. They might spend just 15 extra minutes refining one slide, or practicing their opening for 5 minutes longer than usual. Day 10. They might have incrementally improved their vocal delivery by 1% each day, or spent 1% more time anticipating difficult questions. Day 100. The cumulative effect of these tiny daily improvements means they are now significantly more polished, confident, and prepared than they were. Their baseline execution capability has fundamentally shifted. The magic isn't in any single day's tiny improvement. It's in the relentless accumulation of those marginal gains. After 1 year of 1% daily improvements in a specific execution skill, you are not just 365% better, a linear improvement. You are nearly 37 times better due to the power of compounding. After 2 years, the difference is astronomical. After 5 years, you are operating in a completely different league from those who only rely on sporadic, intense efforts. This is the profound power of compounding improvement applied to your ability to execute. The individuals who dominate their fields in terms of delivering results under pressure don't achieve greatness overnight. They meticulously build their skills, their resilience, their focus, and their decision-making prowess little by little, 1% by 1%, day after consistent day, until they reach a level of execution mastery that seems almost unattainable to the casual observer. The lesson here is unequivocal. Forget the futile pursuit of dramatic, overnight transformations in your execution capabilities. Instead, laser focus on making small, consistent, daily 1% improvements in the specific areas that will enhance your ability to act decisively and effectively under pressure. The long-term results will not just surprise you, they will astound you. 2. The compounding calculus of execution. Why tiny gains in decisiveness and focus lead to massive performance under pressure. To truly grasp why the executor's 1% edge is so transformative, especially for high-stakes execution, let's briefly revisit the core concept of compounding, but apply it directly to your operational capabilities. Compounding in financial investments. We all understand that if you invest a sum of money and it earns a consistent, even small percentage return, that return is then applied to the new, larger principal. Over time, this doesn't lead to linear growth. It leads to exponential growth. What starts as barely noticeable gains eventually explodes into significant wealth. Compounding in execution capabilities. The exact same principle applies to your skills, your knowledge relevant to execution, your decision-making speed, your focus, and your resilience under pressure. If you improve your ability to make a sound decision under mild pressure by just 1% today, and then build on that with another 1% improvement tomorrow, and continue this process relentlessly, your overall capacity to execute effectively in high-pressure scenarios doesn't just add up, it multiplies. Why small, consistent gains in execution outperform large, inconsistent efforts when pressure mounts. Most people approach skill development for execution in a reactive, inconsistent manner. They cram information right before a critical decision instead of consistently building their knowledge base. They only practice handling pressure when they are already in a crisis, instead of regularly engaging in lower-stakes pressure inoculation exercises. They try to make massive changes to their communication style overnight before an important meeting, instead of making small, daily refinements. And then they wonder why their performance is erratic and why they often falter when the pressure is truly on. The truth is, massive, inconsistent action in building execution capability simply doesn't work for long-term, sustainable high performance. What does work is relentless consistency in small, targeted improvements. Reading 10 pages a day from a book on decision-making under uncertainty consistently beats cramming 100 pages the night before a crucial choice. Practicing one difficult conversation technique for 15 minutes daily beats attending a one-off, day-long workshop and then never applying the skills. Making one small, decisive action each day on a task you've been avoiding beats waiting for a burst of motivation to tackle the whole thing at once. This is why the executor's 1% edge is so incredibly potent for anyone serious about mastering high-pressure execution. It allows you to build an unshakable foundation of capability and an unstoppable momentum of improvement without the burnout, frustration, and inconsistency that plagues those who chase dramatic, unsustainable overhauls. 3. Implementing the executor's 1% edge in your daily execution. A step-by-step tactical guide. Now that you understand the profound power of small, daily, compounding improvements in your ability to execute, let's break down precisely how you can systematically apply the executor's 1% edge to transform your performance, especially under pressure. Step 1. Isolate one critical execution skill or behavior to target for 1% daily improvement. The most common mistake people make when trying to improve is attempting to overhaul everything simultaneously. They try to become better decision-makers, communicators, strategists, and time managers all at once. This inevitably leads to overwhelm, diluted focus, and ultimately, failure. Instead, begin by selecting one specific high-leverage execution skill or behavior that, if improved consistently, would have the most significant positive impact on your ability to deliver results under pressure. Ask yourself, what is the single biggest bottleneck in my current ability to execute effectively when the stakes are high? E.g., decisiveness, clarity under stress, follow through. What one skill, if I mastered it through 1% daily improvements, would most dramatically enhance my value and impact? Where am I currently most prone to faltering or making mistakes during high-pressure execution? And how can I target that specific weakness with a 1% daily refinement? Pick one thing, and commit to improving that one thing by a marginal 1%, or its closest approximation, every single day. Step 2. Define a minimum viable 1% action, MV1A, that is almost impossible not to do. Your daily 1% improvement action should be so small, so manageable, that it feels almost ridiculous not to do it, even on your busiest or most stressful days. The goal here is to eliminate the friction and resistance associated with starting. Examples of MV1 as if targeting decisiveness. Today, I will make one small decision I've been deferring within 5 minutes of thinking about it. 1% faster/more committed. If targeting focus under pressure. Today, during one 15-minute task, I will consciously redirect my attention back from any distraction within 10 seconds. 1% better focus. If targeting clear communication in crisis. Today, I will reread one important email I send to ensure it's 1% clearer and more concise. The key is to make the daily action so tiny and non-intimidating that skipping it feels like a bigger effort than actually doing it. This builds the habit of consistent engagement. Step 3. Track your daily 1% execution streak with unwavering discipline. You need a simple, visual system to hold yourself accountable and to build psychological momentum. Whether it's a dedicated habit tracking app, a physical wall calendar where you mark an X for each completed MV1A, or a simple journal entry, track your streak. Seeing a growing chain of successful 1% improvements becomes a powerful intrinsic motivator. The don't break the chain mentality. Your primary goal becomes not breaking that daily streak of 1% improvement. If you miss a day, never miss 2. Life happens. You might occasionally miss a day. The crucial rule is to get back on track immediately the very next day. 1 missed day is a slip. 2 missed days is the beginning of a new, negative habit. Focus on consistency over intensity. Initially in the early stages, the consistency of performing your MV1A every day is far more important than the perceived size or impact of that single action. You are building the habit of daily incremental improvement in your execution. Step 4. Gradually level up your 1% challenge as momentum builds. Once you have established a consistent streak, e.g. 30 to 60 days, of performing your MV1A for your chosen execution skill, and it starts to feel truly effortless, that's when you can begin to slightly increase the challenge of your daily 1% action. Go from making one small decision quickly to making 2. Go from 15 minutes of hyper-focused work to 20 minutes. Go from rereading one email for clarity to applying a specific clarity checklist to 3 emails. The key is to make these escalations small and incremental, always maintaining the feeling of it being a manageable 1% stretch rather than a daunting leap. Continue to track your progress. Let the power of compounding gains in your execution capability work its magic. You stand at a crossroads right now. You can continue down the common path of seeking dramatic, elusive breakthroughs in your ability to execute, trying to overhaul everything overnight, and likely experiencing the familiar cycle of initial enthusiasm followed by frustrating stagnation and failure, just like 99% of people. Or you can choose a different path. A more subtle, more patient, but infinitely more powerful path. You can commit to the executor's 1% edge, the proven methodology that has silently forged the greatest executors, the most resilient leaders, and the most consistently high-performing individuals in every field of human endeavor. The next year of your life will pass, whether you actively choose to improve your execution capabilities or not. Where will you be 365 days from now in your ability to deliver results under pressure? The answer depends entirely on whether you make the conscious, disciplined choice to get just 1% better every single day starting now. Your unstoppable execution momentum awaits that decision. Chapter 14, The Executor's Enduring Legacy, How to Maintain an Unrivaled Execution Edge and Stay Ahead of 99% of People for Life. Let's engage in one final, uncomfortably direct conversation. You've journeyed this far. You've absorbed the core principles, the critical mindset shifts, and the actionable strategies that distinguish the top 1% of executors, those who don't just act, but who act with decisive power and unwavering resolve, especially when the pressure is at its peak. But here is a truth that most people, even those who achieve initial success in execution, fail to internalize deeply enough. Getting ahead, demonstrating an ability to execute effectively under pressure once or even for a period, is one thing. Staying ahead, maintaining that razor-sharp execution edge for the entirety of your career and life, is what truly, unequivocally separates the legends from the temporarily successful, the enduring masters of execution from the forgotten flashes in the pan. Look around you with discerning eyes. How many individuals have you seen demonstrate remarkable execution capabilities for a season, only to see that edge dull, that decisiveness wane, that ability to perform under pressure diminish over time? Athletes who dominated their sport for a few years, then faded into obscurity. Business leaders who orchestrated brilliant turnarounds, only to become complacent and be outmaneuvered. Innovators who launched game-changing products, then failed to sustain that level of execution and fell behind. The world is littered with the cautionary tales of those who once made it, who once demonstrated an extraordinary capacity to execute, but who could not or would not do what was necessary to sustain that advantage. Why does this happen? The answer is almost always a single, insidious culprit: complacency. They reached a certain level of achievement, a certain degree of recognized execution prowess, and a voice whispered, "I've made it. I can ease up now." And in that precise moment of self-congratulation and relaxed vigilance, the decline began. They subtly stopped doing the very things that forged their execution capabilities in the first place. They stopped learning with the same hunger. They stopped pushing their boundaries with the same intensity. They stopped refining their focus and discipline with the same rigor. They stopped executing with the same relentless drive. If you are determined not to become another fleeting success story, if your ambition is to maintain an unrivaled execution edge and stay ahead of 99% of people for the rest of your life, you must burn this understanding into your very soul. Complacency is the silent assassin of sustained high-performance execution. The second you believe you have arrived, the moment you cease your deliberate efforts to grow, sharpen, and adapt your execution capabilities, you begin the inevitable slide towards mediocrity and irrelevance. This final chapter is not merely about winning the game of successful execution. It is about dominating it for a lifetime. It's about forging yourself into the kind of individual whose capacity for decisive, high-impact action under pressure never fades, never slows, and never stops ascending to new heights. If you commit to embodying the principles I am about to share, you will never again have to fear falling behind, losing your execution momentum, or becoming a relic of past achievements. Because true, enduring success as an executor isn't about reaching a summit. It's about relentlessly continuing the climb, forever. 1. The number one reason why even masterful executors lose their edge, and how to avoid it like the plague. The single greatest mistake that even highly capable individuals make after achieving a significant level of execution success is a subtle but catastrophic shift in their core operational mindset. They transition from a growth and offensive execution footing to a maintenance and defensive preservation footing. Instead of constantly seeking new ways to improve their execution, to innovate their processes, to tackle even greater challenges, playing to win, they start focusing on protecting what they've already achieved, avoiding risks, and not making mistakes, playing not to lose. Instead of driving change and pushing boundaries, they become comfortable with their established methods and past glories. Instead of maintaining that raw, insatiable hunger that fueled their ascent, they settle into a dangerous autopilot mode, believing their current level of execution proficiency is sufficient. And then, Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, but with gathering speed, they begin to fall behind. The world doesn't stand still. Competitors don't stop improving. New challenges demanding new levels of execution don't cease to arise. Look at the truly iconic figures who have maintained an extraordinary execution edge across decades. In any field, the legendary military commanders who, even after countless victories, continued to study, adapt, and refine their strategic and tactical execution. The pioneering scientists who, even after Nobel-worthy breakthroughs, remained insatiably curious and relentlessly pushed the frontiers of knowledge through rigorous experimentation, execution. The visionary entrepreneurs who, even after building multi-billion-dollar empires, continued to drive innovation, disrupt new markets, and demand ever higher levels of execution excellence from themselves and their organizations. What do they all have in common? They never, ever got comfortable. They never stopped learning. They never stopped adapting. They never stopped demanding more from themselves in terms of execution. And that is precisely why they never lost their unparalleled edge. If you are resolute in your ambition to stay ahead of 99% of people in your ability to execute under pressure, you must treat every single day, regardless of your current level of success, as if you are still fighting your way up from the bottom, still proving yourself, still honing your craft. Even when you are already at the top, you must maintain the hunger and the execution discipline of a challenger. 2. The perpetual beta executor's mindset. How to ensure continuous growth in your ability to deliver under pressure, no matter how successful you become. The moment you declare, "I know it all," or "I have mastered this aspect of execution," you have, in that very instant, begun your descent into irrelevance. The moment you believe your current toolkit for handling pressure and delivering results is complete and unassailable, you have already fallen behind. The absolute, non-negotiable key to staying ahead of 99% of people in your execution capabilities for life is to never stop learning, never stop evolving, never stop challenging your own assumptions and methods, and never stop seeking new ways to enhance your performance under pressure. How do you achieve this state of perpetual growth in execution? By consciously adopting and religiously practicing the perpetual beta executor's mindset. Think of yourself and your execution capabilities as always being in beta mode. Always a work in progress, always open to improvement, always seeking the next upgrade. Cultivate insatiable curiosity about execution. The most effective executors are also the most intensely curious about how things get done effectively. They constantly ask questions. Is there a better, faster, more resilient way to execute this? What can I learn from that person's successful or failed execution? They challenge the status quo of their own methods. They never assume they have all the answers regarding optimal performance under pressure. Surround yourself with execution sharpeners. If you are consistently the most effective executor in every room you enter, you are in the wrong rooms for growth. You need mentors who have operated at higher levels of pressure, peers who challenge your thinking about execution, and even, respectfully, competitors whose performance pushes you to elevate your own game. Iron sharpens iron. Never rest on yesterday's execution triumphs. What worked brilliantly for you last year, or even last month, in a high-pressure situation might be insufficient or even counterproductive for today's challenges. The context of execution is always shifting: new technologies, new market dynamics, new competitive threats. You must be willing to adapt, evolve, and even discard previously successful execution strategies if they are no longer optimal. Embrace discomfort as the catalyst for execution advancement. True growth in your ability to handle pressure and execute at a higher level only happens when you are operating outside your current comfort zone. The moment your execution tasks start to feel too easy, too routine, it's a blaring signal that you need to actively seek out greater challenges, more complex problems, or higher stakes environments to continue forging your capabilities. Commit to lifelong learning in areas that enhance execution. This isn't just about your core technical skills. It's about continuously learning in areas like decision psychology, leadership under duress, communication clarity, resilience building, and strategic thinking, all of which directly fuel your capacity to execute effectively when it matters most. The greatest executors in history never graduated from the school of execution. They remained perpetual students. If you are committed to staying ahead for life, you must make that same unwavering commitment to lifelong learning and refinement of your execution prowess. 3. The unwavering discipline of enduring high performers. How to maintain ruthless execution consistency for a lifetime. Most people can muster the discipline to execute effectively for a short burst, a few intense weeks on a critical project, a few demanding months to meet a specific target. Some can even maintain a high level of execution discipline for a few years if the motivation is strong enough. But very, very few individuals can sustain an insane level of disciplined execution for the entirety of their careers and lives. And that, precisely, is why they eventually fade, why their initial brilliance dims, why they succumb to mediocrity while the truly elite continue to dominate. The top 1% of enduring executors are relentless in their discipline. They don't just have good intentions. They have deeply ingrained routines, unshakable habits, and non-negotiable systems that keep them operating at peak execution capacity, year after year, decade after decade, regardless of how much success they have already achieved. Consider these non-negotiable habits of lifelong high-performance executors. The relentless daily execution routine. They do not leave their critical execution activities to chance or mood. They have a structured daily, or weekly, routine that forces them to engage with their most important tasks, make necessary decisions, and drive progress, even when they don't feel like it. This routine is as inviolable as breathing. The 80-20 rule applied with surgical precision. Forever they remain perpetually vigilant in focusing the vast majority of their time and energy on the 20% of execution activities that generate 80% of the results. They are ruthless in identifying and eliminating or delegating low-value tasks and distractions that would dilute their execution impact, especially as they become more successful and demands on their time increase. The mental toughness edge maintained daily. They understand that emotional states are transient and unreliable guides for action under pressure. They don't make critical execution decisions based on how they feel. They make them based on their strategic objectives and their pre-committed plans. They actively practice emotional regulation and maintain their composure, day in and day out. The power of rigorous reflection and course correction, a lifelong habit they don't just execute. They learn from every execution. On a regular basis, weekly, monthly, quarterly, they rigorously analyze their performance, identify what worked and what didn't, extract key lessons, and proactively adjust their strategies and execution methods for continuous improvement. They are never satisfied with good enough. If you aspire to maintain an enduring execution edge, you must cultivate this level of relentless, lifelong consistency in your core disciplines. Not for a few weeks, not for a few years, for life. 4. The ultimate question for an enduring executor. Who are you relentlessly becoming? At the end of your journey, when all is said and done, maintaining an execution edge that keeps you ahead of 99% of people for a lifetime does not come down to a collection of tricks, hacks, temporary motivational fixes, or even a single brilliant strategy. It comes down to one profound, existential question that you must ask yourself every single day. Who are you relentlessly becoming? Sustained, elite execution is not a destination you reach. It is a lifestyle you embody. It is not an award you win once and then display on a shelf. It is a dynamic, evolving state of being that you must consciously cultivate, protect, and enhance every single day of your life. So, ask yourself with unsparing honesty, are you consistently, deliberately pushing your execution limits? Or are you subtly, perhaps unconsciously, settling for what feels comfortable and familiar? Are you waking up each day with an insatiable hunger to execute more effectively, to learn more, to achieve more? Or are you allowing the glow of past successes to breed complacency? Are you actively, consciously evolving into the absolute best, most formidable version of yourself as an executor, day by day? Or are you allowing your skills, your focus, your discipline to slowly, imperceptibly erode? The harsh, immutable truth of high-performance execution is this: it is a domain where stasis is death. If you are not actively growing, you are, by definition, regressing. If you are not relentlessly learning and adapting your execution, you are falling behind. If you are not consistently improving your ability to deliver under pressure, someone else, somewhere, is. So, what's next for you, the aspiring lifelong master executor? You have reached the end of this audiobook. You now possess the foundational knowledge, the mental frameworks, and the actionable strategies to think, act, and ultimately dominate like the top 1% of executors. But absorbing this information, no matter how profoundly it resonates, is not enough. It is merely the first tentative step. You must now execute on this knowledge. You must commit to these principles with an unwavering resolve. You must prove, not to me, not to the world, but to yourself, that you are one of those rare, extraordinary few who will actually, consistently, and relentlessly apply what they have learned. Most people will close this book or stop this audio, and, within days or weeks, revert to their old habits of hesitation, distraction, and inconsistent execution. Will you be one of them? Or will you seize this knowledge, forge it into an unshakable internal code, and use it to build a life and career so profoundly impactful, so consistently excellent in its execution, that 99% of people will look upon your achievements with awe and wonder? How did they do that? The choice, as it has always been and always will be, is yours. But remember this one final, immutable truth. The greatest executors never stop. Neither should you. Now go and become unstoppable.